O Show. This is the Big 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 O Show.
There's many ways to support our program, from subscribing and liking the show to visiting our terrific sponsors. Another way is using Cash App. If you would like to donate to the show and help us grow, download Cash App and search Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. We appreciate your support as we continue to build the best sports show on the planet for South Florida sports fans. Support the Big O Show by using Cash App and donate to Cash Big O Show. Thank you for your incredibly loyal support. For over 16 years, EJDConstruction.com has provided South Florida residents quality craftsmanship, accurate project management, and exceptional service. That's why EJDConstruction.com is an A-rated member of Angie's List and the Better Business Bureau. When you're looking for the right custom home builder for additions or home remodeling, please call my friend Eric at 305-433-4843. That's 305-433-4843 for EJDConstruction.com.
This is the Big O Show.
There's many ways to support our program, from subscribing and liking the show to visiting our terrific sponsors. Another way is using Cash App. If you would like to donate to the show and help us grow, download Cash App and search Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. We appreciate your support as we continue to build the best sports show on the planet for South Florida sports fans. Support the Big O Show by using Cash App and donate to Cash Big O Show. Thank you for your incredibly loyal support.
This is the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show.
Sports fans love a place with great food, cold drinks, and TVs everywhere. That's why sports fans love Sports Grill and their 7 amazing locations. Check out the Bird Road location at 11481 Southwest 40th Street in the back corner of the West Bird Shopping Center. Sports Grill is also now offering some great employment opportunities. All kinds of positions are now available, from kitchen to hosting. Call for more information at 305-485-8845. From wraps to salads to amazingly delicious specialty dishes, Sports Grill is the home to the legendary special grilled wings. Since 1987, Sports Grill, good food, good drink, and good friends.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
The viewpoint, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. When it comes to South Florida sports teams, very few in the media have witnessed, lived, and covered it like the Big O. Let's start the program dedicated to your favorite South Florida teams with a passion that's unmatched. The Big O Radio Show is on. Here's the Big O.
All righty, welcome aboard. Time to rock and roll and have a little fun here on the program. Thank you for joining us. As always, it's a Wednesday, it's a hump day, and so we hump a little earlier today than normal because, as you all know, the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint show will be on at 10 a.m., so they will be on for an hour. Ira Winderman, Clay Ferraro. They will be talking a lot of Heat, a lot of NBA. NBA just put out their Christmas schedule, so we'll be able to watch a little NBA and a little NFL on Christmas Day. Used to only be NBA, but now the NFL is kind of getting in as of late, so good for us, man. I'm glad it will help throughout. And I'll get into something that I want to talk about with that down the line. On the program, because obviously we'll be on for several hours. Always appreciate the amazing support. By the way, yesterday, another record in downloads. You're all phenomenal, and I appreciate you. And this is why, you smash the like button, whether you're listening to the podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube. It's essential that you smash that like button and share the link with folks, whether it's YouTube, whether it's the podcast, so that way the family continues to grow, which is a beautiful thing, and the family continues to grow, which is awesome. So thank you all out there for another record yesterday. And I mean, you shattered the old mark. Shattered. So it's just crazy stuff. It's our greatest 30 days that we've been on since we started this thing, and it just kind of really solidifies what we got to do here to kind of build this thing up, which is good. We'll take more steps next week, which I'm looking forward to. It's going to be an exciting week next week, actually. The show's going to grow again and take another step forward. And we're getting closer to our pre- and post-game shows at Sports Grill. Remember, we're going to be at Sports Grill on Bird and 114th in Miami and in Miami Lakes, right off of the Palmetto and the Bend. At 154th, it's just west, that shopping center that's on the west side of the Palmetto, where the Publix is at, and Outback and all that stuff. That's where Sports Grill is at. So we will be half a season in one, half a season in the other. So we encourage you that if you're going to watch the Dolphin games at a bar, please join us over at Sports Grill for some amazing wings and, of course, a great time. We will get to talk Dolphins all throughout. We're going to have great guests on for our pre- and post-game shows. So we will obviously take your comments and all that kind of stuff on the chat board, on Twitter, on email, all of that. So there's always many ways to connect with us here on the program, and I appreciate all of you out there. Dolphins will start their practices today against the Atlanta Falcons, which is really cool. They'll get a little bit more quality work, let's say, over the next couple of days, and then leading in to the preseason game, which, it actually, in a way, all this stuff adds a little spice to the preseason, doesn't it? This is like a cool preseason for us. Think about this, because like the Chiefs fans, obviously for them, it's the regular season. They don't give a shit about the preseason. They don't need to see any more Tyreek Hill, and they don't need to see Pat Mahomes, and they don't need to see Jones on defense. They don't need to see any of that. They just need to survive in the preseason and stay injury-free, right? But for the Dolphins and us as fans, there's a developmental phase going on. It's where they're trying to get to where the Chiefs are at, right? And this is part of the process. And in a way, this is a fun preseason for us. And listen, I know I'm twisted. I've had fun from day one of this teardown in the first year. I was happy as hell, as you all know, those of you at least that have been following this from the first time that they made the change here. I was the guy that was all pumped up about all of this, while some had plenty of trepidation about it and they were nervous. And that's because of everything that's happened with the Dolphins over the years, and people are kind of, disgusted at this point. So I get it. But think about this. For us as Dolphin fans, this is a fun preseason, man, because it's like unwrapping gifts at Christmas, right? Is Van Ginkel going to get better, right? Hey, can Austin Jackson turn the corner? Is Tua the guy? For me, I know he's the guy, but for those of you that were, doubters and all that stuff. So we get to see Tua. Like, it was exciting to watch Tua this past week and throw the ball around. That was cool. It was good to see the defense go out there because it's a young defense. They played well last year, so you got to now live up to that, because we're all kind of feeling the defense and going, we're counting on them. You know what I mean? So I'm personally having fun. Jalen Waddle, watching him, do a little return this past week. I know he didn't get, involved in a major way in the passing game, but that's all right. It'll all work out. But to me, that's actually the cool part about all of this, is watching the development of certain players. Nick Needham, he's been here for a couple of years, and we've watched him grow. I think that's exciting. I find that really, really cool. Benardrick McKinney, you start seeing him, and while he's not young, but you needed help in that run defense, right? You look at him, and it's like, okay, they got some help on run defense there. That dude is going to knock some fools out, right? And to me, that's the exciting part. Obviously, there's nervousness because, hey, can Michael Dieter handle center? Can Austin Jackson turn the corner? Is it Solomon Kinley or is it Eichenberg? All of that kind of stuff. So, yes, there's some stuff that we're a little nervous about because they haven't shown us enough yet. But it's cool. It's, watching the Foster kid come out of nowhere, the Trill Williams kid come out of nowhere. It's considering that preseason is supposed to be something that you don't look forward to, right? And I geek out and I watch the preseason no matter what. But you think about it, these are preseasons for us as Dolphin fans that are some of the most important preseasons that we're going to watch over the next couple of years, because these are the ones that are developing the foundation of the team. I hope 3-4 years from now, the Dolphins are a winning club and we just want to get through the preseason and and stay healthy. And you don't play Tua, don't play this guy, don't play that guy. I hope we get there. You know what I'm saying? But at least for now, it gives us a purpose in the preseason. It gives us an opportunity to legitimately watch players that are going to be a part of the regular season. It's not just, all right, let's field the scrubberinis. Let's bench the starters. We just want to survive. That's not what's going on. And so that part is actually cool as a Dolphin fan, that you're able to watch something that matters. You know what I mean? That's the best part about it. It matters. And so this week here becomes an exciting week as a Dolphins fan, because these are two practices against another team. So these practices are measured, there's more to measure there actually than going through the motions of facing your teammate every day, and that just doesn't pick you up. This is going to pick you up for the next 2 days, and then you've got the game. So it's a culmination of a whole week, and it really creates a nice buzz for us, interest, eyes are watching, and obviously jobs are on the line. So it's a lot of fun, man. That's the one thing that if you look at this preseason, it's actually, it means something. It means a lot, actually, for the Miami Dolphins. And that part is cool for us because there's something to actually watch that matters. Anyway, you want to get in on the program? It's really simple, man. Yahoo email, Big O Radio Show at yahoo.com. That's Big O Radio Show at yahoo.com. If you want to get in on the program, you can also reach out to us on Twitter. Please follow us there at Big O Show. It's a great way of keeping up with the show. You'll know who's coming on. Like if you would have followed us on Twitter, you would know Kyle Krabs will be on with us at 11:30 today in the second hour of the program. Or actually, that's like the start of the third hour because we start at 9:30, right? So around the start of the third hour of the program, which is at 11:30, it'll be Kyle Krabs joining us here on the show. So we'll talk all things Dolphins, obviously, with the Locked On Fins host and obviously the director of scouting for the Draft Network. Kyle does an excellent job. I told you we'd have him on. We were going to lock him in per week, but we obviously could not do that. But that doesn't mean he's not going to be on with us throughout the season. So we'll have him on, and we'll have a little fun. I'm looking forward to next week. Hopefully we'll have some exciting news for you next week here on the show that should have happened this week, but things happen, so it gets pushed to next week. So we will have that for you. Now, let's get into, obviously, the move that was made yesterday for an offensive tackle in Greg Little for the Miami Dolphins as they trade with Carolina, and they trade a 7th-round pick in 2022 for a tackle that was taken, I believe, 37th overall in the second round. So a high second-round pick. The kid had a lot of good grades coming out of Mississippi, but he has just not been able to stay healthy. He has been inconsistent. He can be a run blocker. That's been his most consistent trait that he has shown so far in the NFL, but he has not been reliable. He has struggled mightily in pass protection. He obviously feels much more comfortable if he can maul the guy in front of him. And so Greg Little, and remember, he wasn't drafted by these guys. This regime here is a new regime, so this is not their headache. This is not their failure. And we're only talking about a kid that's been in the league for only a couple of years. In 2019 is when he got drafted. So it's the year before Rule and company took over with Carolina. And I got to tell you, this is a move. Again, this is another one of those specialty Chris Grier moves where you risk nothing whatsoever. I mean, giving away a 7th-round pick is garbage. And if you end up getting a starting tackle out of it, and listen, I think the theme about patience has been here a lot on this show lately, with some of you out there giving up on people so early. Now, when it comes to this young man, it's not about patience, but it is a young man still, an incredibly young man. He's only been in the league a couple of years, and he hasn't been in a great situation either. It's not like the Carolina Panthers are this fantastic team or anything like that. They're a struggling team at this point in time, trying to, find their way. And maybe they will under this new coach and new leadership. We'll see. So this trade, now, as you all know, Austin Jackson struggled so far. He hasn't looked good. And there's a lot of layers to this move that I like. And let me go over some of the layers of this move that I like a lot. One, you gave up nothing. A 7th-round pick for a guy that was picked in the upper half of the second round. So we're talking about either you could call it a low first-round pick or a very high second-round pick. So he's got a lot of talent. Everybody knows that. So you've got potential there. Now you bring him. He changes environments. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it doesn't, Josh Rosen, right? Sometimes it doesn't help, Antonio Callaway. Sometimes it doesn't help, right? That you change environments and it doesn't really do anything. You are what you are, and you don't end up becoming the guy that people think you can be possibly down the line. We've watched it here recently fail a couple of times, and I can come up with 10 other examples where it failed. Now, there are times where sometimes The change of scenery helps a player out, and they end up thriving here more than there. Adam Shaheen didn't do anything in Chicago, has played better here than he did in Chicago, right? That became a productive acquisition for the Miami Dolphins. So Eric Rowe was a guy that they couldn't find a role for, but yet they found a role here for him in covering tight ends. Vince Beagle. Vince Beagle was kind of an afterthought in New Orleans. But before the knee injury, they found a role for him here, and he was pretty productive, right? And you're like sitting there going, holy shit, this is better than Kiko Alonso, correct? I'm wrong here, right? So sometimes the change of scenery helps. Sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what's going to happen with Greg Little. I can't predict it. You can't predict it. Maybe the kid finds his way. Maybe the kid challenges Austin Jackson. And there's the other thing. Austin Jackson knows he hasn't played well. Austin Jackson knows he's struggling. Austin Jackson also knows there was no competition. Now, all of a sudden, whoa, wait a minute. They just acquired a kid that is as talented as I am, but has struggled. And I'm struggling. I better get my ass in gear. So this does many things. It could create depth for you because if he plays at least, decent, you can have him and Jesse Davis, guys that can rotate and all that. Because if Eichenberg ends up at right tackle, then all of a sudden now you got these two guys. If he plays well enough, you can keep him as a depth guy. Now, if he comes in and he says, F this, dude, I got traded. Now I'm here. I'm gonna ball out. I'm gonna become the player that I couldn't become in Carolina. Now he challenges, Austin Jackson. And these guys don't care. That's what I love about Flo. He doesn't give a shit if you're a street free agent, if you're a 7th rounder, a 1st rounder. We talked about this. The dude's just about winning. Which one of you can help me win? Oh, you? Okay, you're playing. You can't help me. You're on the bench. You're cut. That's Flo. Flo doesn't F around. That's why they made this move, because they don't F around. So obviously, if they made this move, it's also sending a message to Austin Jackson. Yo, get your ass in gear, dude. We need you to, pick it up. And they don't waste time. They traded for Rosen, and they found out right away that he wasn't the guy, and then they got rid of him, and they don't care. Okay, whatever. You used a pick, move on. Screw it. We're not going to waste time. Oh, you can't coach up our O-line? Okay, get the hell out of here. I'll get another O-line coach. They don't waste any time. So that's also the good thing about Greg Little. While I'm not ready to give up on Austin Jackson, not even close, but there are ingredients in all of this that's actually really good. This might get Austin Jackson straightened out a little bit. You know what I'm saying? And that's the good thing, that all of a sudden you create competition where there wasn't competition. Whether it's Larnell Coleman or any of the other guys that were available, they weren't there. They weren't Panky or any. None of these guys are going to be good enough to take or challenge Austin Jackson right now. Because Austin last year wasn't terrible at pass coverage. He was just non-existent in run blocking. And this past week, he was out of balance on pass coverage plenty of times. He was just late on things. And it felt like he was slow-footed / did not use proper technique in all of that, because he just was out of balance all the time. So his footwork or whatever, he's got to get better to put himself in position to block these guys. And he's a good athlete, so he should be able to do it. But that's what I like about this Greg Little move. One, you risk nothing. You gave up absolutely nothing. Two, you never know. You might end up finding yourself a player out of nothing, a guy that has a lot of talent. Three, you might end up lighting a fire under Austin Jackson's ass, and it might get him in gear. And if Austin Jackson plays well and Greg Little starts to play well, then all of a sudden you've got depth. And who knows? Maybe Greg Little becomes a starting guard for you. You never know. Maybe Austin Jackson starts playing well, and so is Greg Little. And you're like, well, Solomon Kinley isn't doing as much as we'd like. Let's put Greg Little in there. You just never know. So what I love about this is there's a lot of positives that can come out of this thing. And again, the Dolphins are covering their ass, which is smart. Remember, we talked about the anticipatory general manager. So he is finding a tackle. They don't waste time here, man. This is a team that is making moves all the time. They're not going to stand pat. They're not going to wait. I'll give you I'll give you an example of where some Dolphin fans are, and it's kind of crazy. Yesterday, I had a guy on Twitter complain to me because Rosen got cut, and he's like, "Well, there's a thing that Grier really screwed up in Rosen." And I got to tell you, at this point, I get it. The Rosen thing didn't work out. Fine, but like I told him, at this point, to complain about Grier and Flo is asinine. We're talking about two dudes that have done an amazing job of turning things around and winning 5 games with no talent, and then winning 10 games last year, almost getting into the playoffs. They've done an exceptional job. And think about this. We're talking about a team that never made moves for quarterbacks. In their first 2 years, they made moves for 2 quarterbacks. Rosen first, and then Tua. If they hit on Tua, which I believe they will, that's a 500 batting average. Meanwhile, as I told that spoiled, ridiculous, overreacting Dolphin fan, I said, hey, why don't you check the batting average from Marino to when Grier took over now? It's 0. 0 or 500. You take the pick. Do you want an aggressive team that is not going to wait around and they're going to make moves? Or do you want somebody that's passive, doesn't make moves, and just leaves the same quarterbacks there over and over and over again? You get what I'm saying? So it's funny, every move you're going to make is not going to be a great one. I'm not sure what, the thinking is with some fans. They think that, well, the general manager, every move he's going to make is going to be an absolutely fantastic move. Well, that's not true. You're going to make the good ones, the good GMs, the good teams overall make better moves than the bad moves. But you're going to make some, you're going to miss on some. The idea is, again, remember we talk about crypto and sports, right? I got the guy complaining about Ethereum going down $200, but you got to remind them you're at 3,000. You were at 1,500 6 months ago. You were at 300 a year ago. Relax. Don't worry about it dropping 300. It's part of the consolidation. That's kind of what it is. You have to look at the macro of the picture, not the micro. And when you look at the Dolphins and you go macro and you look at what Chris Grier and Brian Flores have done in the first 2 years, the progress is enormous. So nitpicking about, well, they missed on Rosen and they missed on this guy. Yeah, but they hit on all the other guys, right? That's what I told the guy. Well, why don't you complain about Van Ginkel? And why don't you complain about finding Needham off the street? And why don't you complain about all the other guys that they've got? Agba as a bargain. And look at the safety kid from Oregon right now. He's looking pretty damn good. It's easy to complain about a couple of moves that aren't going to work out because it's going to happen. But overall, more moves are working out. And as I told him yesterday, again, Chris Grier is looking to become the only GM in Dolphin history in 50 years that finds a coach and a quarterback. No other general manager has ever done that for the Miami Dolphins. Nobody. Shula was the coach and the general manager, so it doesn't count. But post Shula, every other GM that's been in place can't find a coach and a quarterback. This guy may have knocked it out of the park. And within 2 years, he finds a coach and a quarterback. And you're going to complain? I get it. The Rosen thing didn't work out, but I had to slam the guy yesterday on Twitter for that because I just find it to be short-sighted. I find it to be somewhat ungrateful because you've had a pretty crappy organization for a long, long time, and all of a sudden, they look like they know what the hell they're doing, man. And yet, there's still this overreaction at times about silly little things. Macro, not micro. Macro. Got to look at it that way. It's like Pat Riley, right? Pat Riley's been golden for 25 years. Are we going to complain about Michael Beasley, dude? Is that what we're going to do? We're going to hold it against him that he brought back the 31-10 team? No, he's not going to be perfect, dude. He's not, but he's going to be a champion. He's going to give you a lot of wins. Macro, not micro. You know what I'm saying? So that's what you have to look at. You have to look at the entire picture and the amount of winning, championships, winning seasons, division titles, Eastern Conference appearances, NBA Finals appearances, NBA championships. For you to complain about a move here or there that Riley's going to make and he's going to screw up, hey, man, that's ridiculous. Just gets a point. We can be unhappy with it. This is why I always tell fans all the time when, things maybe don't work out for the Heat one year or something, and then the game has passed Riley by. And I try to remind people because as you get older, you have perspective. What we did to Shula, we can never do to Pat Riley. Because we learned our lesson. You push the old man out, and then you learned your lesson that everybody that followed Shula, on Shula's worst year, it was better than most everybody's best year since Shula, was pushed out. Don't do that to Pat Riley. Never do that to Pat Riley because you don't know what's coming next, dude. So all of these guys, whether it's Chris Greer or Pat Riley or anybody else, or the Panthers now, they're going to make good moves and there are going to be some bad moves along the way. But what is the macro of the picture, not the micro? And if the macro overall looks really good, that's what you go with. So that's where I was yesterday, slamming that Dolphin fan for getting crazy about Josh Rosen still at this point. All right, two guys that will be getting crazy at the top of the hour is, of course, Ira Winderman and Clay Ferraro with the Inside the Paint show, which, of course, as we all know, let me get this way here. There we go. Now I'm in the picture. As we know, starts at the top of the hour. Boys, good morning. How are you doing?
As long as I have the biggest head in the frame, I'm good, and it's sort of hard not to there. So, I'm trying to compete there with the big O for a headspace here on the triple shot.
Now mine's bigger. Now mine's
all right,
bigger.
So
it's amazing what the
wins.
perspective
There
does.
you go.
Yeah.
You know what? Oh, interesting.
Something tells me in reality, I think I crushed both of you, but go ahead.
There's a good chance. Although I don't know, man, having some conversations with Ira, he's right there in the running there.
I got to tell you, though, as much as, and you recognize this when we decided to do this show year round and talk Heat year round, Summer League in August, obviously a little later than usual, but really a lot of things learned in these 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So many people will tell us, oh, it's like minicamp, it's like OTAs, it doesn't mean anything. The one thing we're learning about the Heat, because development means so much to them, you watch Summer League with such a different prism. You say, okay, that's a Sioux Falls guy. We'll see him in 2 years. That may be a roster guy. I don't know, and I'm going to talk to Clay about this also, if I've ever seen a more intriguing Heat Summer League when you look at it. You've produced a roster player in Max Strus, a rotation player rather, a roster player in Omar Yurtseven, and we're going to see 2 or 3 of these guys signed either to two-way or Exhibit 10 contracts, but really a worthwhile week. Credit to the Heat. They went to Sacramento. They went to Vegas. They played a full schedule. They played 7 games. They got everyone involved. Guys showed up. They learned, for better or worse, about KZ Okpala. I found it to be a really fascinating experience.
Well, you and I talked about this last week, and Clay, you can react a little bit to this. The problem nowadays is it's much harder to scout, and so guys are falling through the cracks because of high school, going to college. So it's a lot harder, and the Heat scouting staff, as you see, Clay, they're one of the best at unearthing talent from absolutely nowhere.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, and I want to kind of tie it into what you were saying before we came on, because I was catching what you were saying towards the end of that segment, and it's like nobody is sitting here saying that Pat Riley hasn't made mistakes, that the front office of the Heat hasn't made mistakes along. They made quite a few of them, and a lot of them have to do with giving big contracts to guys with the last name Johnson. But what you can't do is look at what they've done and say, on the whole, they haven't done a really good job. And so, when you look at Duncan Robinson signing a $90 million contract, and nobody's questioning because of what Joe Harris did. So you start to look at these summer league games and say, hey, Duncan Robinson was that guy doing those sorts of things in the summer league a few years back. So you start to look at these things through a different prism of, okay, this guy, whether it's Yurtseven or Strus, who we've already seen doing some things at a Heat uniform. Yeah, they're doing these things in the summer league, but there could be a much bigger role for these guys down the line, and maybe they're the ones who are signing that $90 million deal, and that's what Ira and I are going to discuss is kind of what's the ceiling for these guys.
UD and Duncan are two guys that have come from this tree that have become, starting pieces and important pieces for this team. So you never know if Omar is going to turn into that guy down the line. And Strus, obviously, it looks to me like he's grown into that position that they found themselves another shooter. So it really is absolutely amazing. So you're going to have some great talk over the next hour, ladies and gentlemen. It is the Palette Rack City Inside the Paint Show with Ira Winderman and Clay Ferraro. That is next.
Sports fans love a place with great food, cold drinks, and TVs everywhere. That's why sports fans love Sports Grill and their 7 amazing locations. Check out the Bird Road location at 11481 Southwest 40th Street in the back corner of the West Bird Shopping Center. Sports Grill is also now offering some great employment opportunities. All kinds of positions are now available from kitchen to hosting. Call for more information at 305-485-8845. From wraps to salads to amazingly delicious specialty dishes, Sports Grill is the home to the legendary special grilled wings. Since 1987, Sports Grill, good food, good drink, and good friends. When you need your warehouse looking good while staying efficient, there's only one place to find the finest racks in the business. Palette Rack City in Hialeah. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Palette Rack City is the company you need when you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business. After all, who doesn't love a great rack? Palette Rack City. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. Time for an hour of hardcore hoops with the Palette Rack City Inside the Paint program with Ira Winderman and Clay Ferraro. There's only one place to find the finest racks in the business. Palette Rack City in Hialeah. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Let's get to the show basketball fans crave. Let's get inside the paint.
Welcome to Inside the Paint. Hey, happy Wednesday, everybody, and happy Wednesday, Ira. So are you back home now after the world travels in Sacramento and Las Vegas?
Yeah, you know what? It was a worthwhile endeavor. Sometimes it gets a little bit too much, as we saw by some of the ragged play. Even yesterday, Clay, we saw the Heat. They sat out Omer Yurtseven. They sat out Max Strus. They sat out Marcus Garrett. They knew what they had. So it's interesting. Usually a season builds towards a climax. At Summer League, even if you look at the crowds in the stands, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Everyone wants to test their guys. No one wants to overdo it in the offseason. The Heat saw what they needed to see. Like Malik Allen, the Summer League coach, said after the game yesterday, everyone deserves a chance. That's what they tried to do in the loss to the Mavericks yesterday. Never about the overall record, just about what they saw. So, yeah, Clay, incredible. They started August 1st at a summer camp in Sacramento. They finished August 17th. So, no, there's no offseason in the NBA.
Well, and we just got training camp starting, September 28th. So
6 weeks. 6 weeks from yesterday,
so,
yeah.
What I want to focus on today is, first off, you've fired up another big debate among Heat fans on social media with some of your latest questions that you answered in Ask Ira. So we'll get to that a little bit. But, I want to focus on specifically what you mentioned about Summer League, and you saw what you needed to see. And I think from a Heat perspective, there are different levels to this. And so I want to talk about these guys up towards the top of that, which are Yurtseven and Max Strus.
Sure.
And what do you think, based on what you saw in Summer League, what were you thinking going into this about what their projections were, not just for this season, but also beyond that? And did anything that you saw in Summer League kind of take away or change what you thought moving forward for specifically those two guys? And let's start with Yurtseven.
Yeah, I was going to say there's two very disparate kind of situations. I actually addressed the 10 things we learned from Summer League at sunsentinel.com that just posted. It'll be in tomorrow's Sun Sentinel, so you can get the sort of full breadth of the 10 things I broke down. When you look at Omer Yurtseven, think about this, Clay. On August 1st, the Heat are getting together for summer camp in Sacramento before they play 2 games there in the California Classic. And they announced they're not picking up this season's team option on Omer Yurtseven. So there's a part of you who's going, well, that was fun. He showed up the last week of the season, played for Turkey in Olympic qualifiers, and he's gone. Instead, they brought him back, typical tryout kind of contract. And how remarkable, 2 games later, on that Tuesday and Wednesday of that same week, he's so dominant against Sacramento that they signed him to a 2-year contract. And I got to tell you, a lot of times we talk about undrafted players, and we also talk about untested and unproven. Clay, this is a guy who played for the Turkish national team, has international experience. This was a guy who was a professional in Turkey before going to college. The rules have changed. They allow that. So this is a savvy neophyte type of player. And you're seeing it with the Heat. He can block shots. He can score in the post. He has a 3-point touch. He can seal his man and get inside and create a good catching pocket for his passers. So I really wonder, and we'll talk about Max Strus in a second, who I call a rotation player, but you know that Omer's a roster player. And as I wrote in my Ask Ira today at sunsentinel.com, I would not be surprised if he challenges Dwayne Dedmon for backup minutes at center.
And that's the thing that's got people fired up right now. So I do want to get into that in a little bit, but take me back, because I want to talk about the contract situation with Yurtseven and the fact that they did not pick up that option. So you're wondering do you think there was a something in their minds that said, we don't want to pick up that option because then we don't have the team control then beyond that option, to where if he does go out there and ball out like he did, we sign him to that 2-year deal, then all of a sudden we have a little bit more control relative to his contract and his potential future. Do you think that was a part of this?
Absolutely spot on. Clay's been studying his NBA CBA there. That's absolutely spot on. When you're in the NBA for 2 years, under 2-year contract, you become what they call an early bird free agent. You can get up to the average salary, which is pretty good average salary, about $10 million a year now. So that's what the Heat did. They didn't want to lose him after a year. They'd have to use cap space, which they won't have with all the large salaries they signed. They'd have to use a cap exception, which you'd like to save to sort of churn through your roster. That absolutely was the thinking, Clay. A lot of times things are not as they appear. There's a strong relationship with the agent. They were able to work through that situation. They have him now, and it's a great contract for the Heat. 1 year at the minimum and a 1-year non-guaranteed team option. So you know what, Clay? If it all goes to crap, if he becomes the latest, and we've seen plenty of these, one-time Summer League wonder who cannot translate it from Summer League to the NBA, you move on. This is the smart stuff that you and Big O were talking across talk about, smart front offices, about planning ahead, about things not always being what they seem. Andy Ellisberg, Adam Simon, Pat Riley, the Heat front office did a really good job with that one.
So when you're going into this thing and you see that move, and I think a lot of people had the same reaction that you did. It's like, oh, well, that was fun. He must not have shown them enough to give him the. No, it was actually quite the opposite, that they had seen what he was doing and they're like, wait a minute, we don't want to risk. We want to make sure that, hey, if he is the guy that we think we want to have that longer control. So I'm glad that you cleared that up. Now let's get to what is causing kind of this debate, this firestorm, which is, can he really challenge Dwayne Dedmon for minutes? And I think part of this, Ira, is Dwayne Dedmon was somebody that, first off, there's this craving for a big. And,
yes.
And it's something that Heat fans have had for a while. And I think probably it's gone back even deeper than this. But I think what happened in the playoffs, not just this past year, but also the year before in the finals, when, the Lakers were able to kind of muscle them off the floor early part of that series. People seem to forget that the Heat kind of turned the tide on that thing. And they had eventually played Dwight Howard off the floor. But then you saw the season go on this past year, and in particular in the playoffs against Milwaukee, where it was straight up ugly. And it kind of, I think, reaffirmed people's feelings that they needed that big, right? So Dedmon comes in, and man, if you look at his per 36 minutes numbers, he was incredible. But it was a very small sample size. Like he would go out there and just it was man, energy level through the roof. So when you talk about Yurtseven, where do you think that he could push somebody like Dwayne Dedmon, who has already shown some decent things in his minutes on the court?
You know, Dwayne Dedmon is the 10-year veteran, the guy who's been around, knows the league savvy. He's not going to get punked by other power players. You need that. But offensively, he had that brief stretch where he was hitting three-pointers in Sacramento and Atlanta, but not really looked at as an offensive threat. And Clay, you and I have talked about how the game has changed in the NBA, that if you're not live as a scorer, and we'll get to Casey Okpala later, you're not necessarily good enough to be on the floor. I think Omar Yurtseven at this point, no disrespect to Dwayne Dedmon, is a more skilled offensive potential player than Dwayne Dedmon is. So you want to see the combinations. And Clay, this has been a debate. I know that you and Will Manso and Local 10 have discussed this also, is Eric Spoelstra's reluctance to play two true big men together. The only time we've really seen it in recent season was Kelly Olynyk and Bam Adebayo together. And that worked. That was effective. Earlier in that season, spot starter Myers Leonard, but never really anything that endured. I want to see if the Heat can go big, because Clay, you mentioned it. In that series against the Bucks, they were punked off the court. They were destroyed on the boards. The Heat's power forwards, again, are not big. They've gone on this cycle from Jay Crowder. Then this past season, they moved to Trevor Ariza. Now this P.J. Tucker, always been undersized. Markieff Morris, maybe more of a 3 than a 4. So I really want to see the possibilities of big and big. And just like the Heat explored possibilities in Summer League when nothing was at stake, I'd like to see the same thing in the Heat's preseason schedule. Put Bam, put Yurtseven out there, see if it works. If it doesn't, hey, lesson learned, no cost. But if it does, that's when I think you may have to reconsider some of Dwayne Dedmon's minutes.
It's really simple here. Spo doesn't want to play two guys in the front court who can't shoot three-pointers, can't stretch the floor. And so I think that's why you saw some of the Bam and Kelly Olynyk minutes a lot, and then some of the Bam and Myers Leonard. It's not a coincidence that both Myers Leonard and Kelly Olynyk were standing out at the three-point line a lot. So I think a lot of this will come down to which one of those players can effectively stretch the floor. And I think the thing with Dedmon is the energy that he brought. And there were certain times in games, especially when you get to the dog days of the season, where man, sometimes you just need that infusion of life. And I think what Dedmon brought to the floor was, and this is what I think is kind of at the heart of this debate that's going on right now, is he brought that energy, and I feel like he kind of endeared himself to Heat fans while doing that. And the numbers were great. But to your point, unless and until somebody can go out there and stretch the floor next to Bam, does it really matter? And eventually, in Spo's mind, because you're never going to see it. Or here's the flip part of this: what if all of a sudden Bam becomes Chris Bosh and steps out and starts hitting three-pointers?
And that's the next iteration, and we're waiting for that. Remember when he was about to be drafted, he came in. I think he hit something like 70 out of 100 3-pointers, and they were saying he's a threat. And then, of course, you don't want to take him too far outside. This is another problem for the Heat. When you become too versatile, I think it can almost hamper you for this reason. And I wrote about this in one of my Ask Ira questions today. Bam Adebayo defensively can guard anyone, right, Clay?
Yes.
The first play of every game, they play a 1-5 pick and roll. Bam switches out on the opposing point guard, smothers the crap out of the guy, and there's no one inside to provide defensive deterrence.
And then,
so you have that.
Then you get Duncan Robinson guarding DeAndre Ayton or Rudy Gobert or Nikola Jokic. I mean, I remember that West Coast trip. I was like, okay, we get it.
Stop
we get
switching.
Bam can do
Stop switching. So you have that. Now, offensively, if you're going to move Bam to the three-point line, you're going to remove his offensive rebounding. He's going to become a perimeter big, which is fine only if you're going to play too big so Omar Yurtseven can duck in there for the rebound. So even when you mentioned Myers Leonard and Kelly Olynyk, which had worked marginally, neither of them were great rebounders. They just weren't. Myers Leonard would always talk about, I'm boxing out so someone else can get the rebound. No, get the damn rebound. Kelly Olynyk has never been known as a great rebounder. He has a different skill set. So Dedmon will get you man-sized rebounds. I think Omar Yurtseven, after he trains with the Ferrand, Eric Ferrand, the current strength coach, Bill Ferrand, the strength coach emeritus, will build up that body that he can do that also. The Heat have to stop getting bullied. They were bullied out of the postseason last season. They were bullied to a degree even by the Lakers in the NBA Finals the season before that. They have to show some muscle. PJ Tucker gives you muscle. Markieff Morris will give you muscle to a degree. But you need the muscle and you need the length also. That's why Yurtseven mania is running rampant around here. You don't get guys who are that skilled, that big, that long, and potentially that strong. That's what made it a special thing.
And guys, make sure check out the comments section. Drop some comments there. I'm going to get to some of the questions that you guys might have here because we like to kind of keep this interactive, and this is probably the best way to interact with us here. And Duncan got that bag, definitely. Could you see the Heat trading a player for Rondo? I want to talk about that coming up in the next segment because I still think you and I discussed this a bit last week. It's you think that maybe Gabe Vincent could potentially step into that backup point guard slot, and yet you don't know. And until you know, there's still kind of that hole there. C. Dollar says, finally, Ira, I've been saying that. Omar, what's going on? So bottom line with all this stuff, what you saw from Yurtseven, because we want to wrap this thing up in the context of what we saw in Summer League. What you saw from Yurtseven was enough to make you think that he has the potential to play alongside Bam and be that guy that they've been looking. If he gets with the training staff and do it. So, when you see the development of guys like Duncan Robinson and players in the past, look, you say what you want about Tyler Johnson. He's somebody that, no, he wasn't worth the contract he eventually signed. But he was an effective player for us. So there are these success stories that come out of that, and potentially Yurtseven is that guy. The question is twofold. Number one, how quickly does it happen? And number two, we're looking at this in a vacuum. Where is the next step in Bam's development to where how he would play with one of those players?
Yeah, and again, that's all you want is you want to explore possibilities. You have Summer League for that. You have preseason for that. You want to have the pipeline. Yes, this is an old team. We discussed that last week. We discussed that when the Heat started adding all these players, the Lowrys and the Markieff Morrises and the PJ Tuckers and Jimmy getting older. But it's nice to have that sort of second wave, especially a team that has no second-round draft choices ever. A team that is at least out of one future first-round draft choice, and depending on what the Kyle Lowry investigation shows, might be out of 2 first-round draft choices coming up. So if you can maintain that pipeline, and I love the arrogance of the Heat. You can have your second-round picks. You can have your late first-round picks. We got Adam Simon, we got Chet Kamara, we got Keith Askins, and we're going to show up in Summer League with our fancy unwrapped gifts, and people are going to go to their GMs and their scouts. How'd you miss that guy? Why didn't we draft that guy? What happened over there? There is an arrogance to the Heat scouting that has paid unbelievable dividends, and you have to feel that's happening again right now with what they uncovered in Omar Yurtseven, not overstating him, but as long as he's a factor in the rotation, or at least a factor, in the lineup and in the roster, you're moving toward the right direction.
Because those are the holes that we're looking to plug at this point, right? So it's not that we're saying he's going to go out there and he's going to all of a sudden start next to Bam and average 15 and 10. It's okay. What is this team lacking? So I figured that we would get on this topic and we'd end up spending the whole first segment talking about Yurtseven, and we wouldn't even talk about Strus. So I want to talk about him coming up. I do also want to discuss the possibility of Rajon Rondo and somebody that you mentioned earlier, and you said we're going to get to KZ Okpala. And where does he stand? You talk about the arrogance of the Heat staff. And
sure.
Yeah. I mean, you bring in these under, and yet you spent what 3 second-round picks?
3 second-round picks
in order to get Okpala. And so where is he right now in the Heat organization? Where do they view him? And could these things kind of tie together with potentially bringing in a point guard? Could Okpala be a part of that? So, man, we got a lot to talk about. We've already talked about quite a bit, but I want to get more into Strus and the backup point guard situation coming up next, right here on Inside the Paint.
You're listening to the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint Show. Pallet Rack City in Hialeah is the company you need when you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business. After all, who doesn't love a good rack? Pallet Rack City. Sports fans love a place with great food, cold drinks, and TVs everywhere. That's why sports fans love Sports Grill and their 7 amazing locations. Check out the Bird Road location at 11481 Southwest 40th Street in the back corner of the West Bird Shopping Center. Sports Grill is also now offering some great employment opportunities. All kinds of positions are now available from kitchen to hosting. Call for more information at 305-485-8845. From wraps to salads to amazingly delicious specialty dishes, Sports Grill is the home to the legendary special grilled wings. Since 1987, Sports Grill, good food, good drink, and good friends.
This is the Big O Show. 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 This is the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
When you need your warehouse looking good while staying efficient, there's only one place to find the finest racks in the business. Pallet Rack City in Hialeah. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Pallet Rack City is the company you need when you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business. After all, who doesn't love a great rack? Pallet Rack City. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. If it's hardcore hoops you desire, make sure you subscribe to the Big O Radio Show and never miss an episode of Inside the Paint. Let's get back to the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint Show with Ira Winderman and Clay Ferraro.
Welcome back. Big O Radio Show Inside the Paint. Ira Winderman joining me. Hey, Ira, so as usual, we went way too long in the first segment.
You know what? But I want to say one thing about that, though, Clay. That's why we do the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint Show for an hour. Because, you do other radio hits. You've been on, Local 10. You get your couple of minutes here or there. It's nice to go deep into a subject and not just have to give the cursory kind of comments. And then people all of a sudden, on Twitter, they're saying this guy can't play. They're saying this guy is great. Right. That we get a chance to offer the contractual perspective, the developmental perspective, the roster perspective, and that all factors in. Quick takes, hot takes are great. We do those sometimes also. That's what social media is for. But it's nice to show up here every Wednesday morning, 10 o'clock, Pallet Rack City, Inside the Paint, and go more in depth. No place on the web, no place on the radio dial are you going to get 17 minutes of hard-hitting Omar Yurtseven talk. That's what we're proud of here. And also, we're huge in Turkey because of that. Go ahead, Clay.
Look, all joking aside, he's the guy people are talking about right now. So, I mean, and I think you get to a certain point where it's like, we know what this Heat roster, the top of the roster is going to look like. So the question is, how are you supplementing that? And then what's next? So with that in mind, I want to talk about Max Strus. And, I think he showed enough during the regular season to make you kind of raise an eyebrow and say, all right, he's going to be in that next wave of guys who, I'm going to say come out of nowhere, but do kind of come out of nowhere.
Sure.
That they're going to be the guys that the Heat developmental staff turn into somebody who's going to be a contributor. The question is, to what level? And what I loved about what he did in the Summer League, Ira, and you were there, he did the things that I think we knew he could do, the shooting and some of the stuff off the dribble that I think he's better at than I think we thought. And yet the thing that stood out to me was the big game, the big moments in the game. And you can sit there and you can say, oh, well, it's just Summer League and whatever. Those moments in the game, the high stress moments, the high leverage moments where, hey, it's put the ball in a guy's hands. The same feeling, the same pumping that goes on in your chest goes on in Summer League, goes on in the regular. So to me, Ira, and you correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like the fact he was able to show in those moments that he's able to kind of grab hold of what he needs to do, I thought that was really encouraging.
Well, let's look at it this way. Alonzo Mourning, Tim Hardaway, Shaquille O'Neal, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade never hit a game-winning double overtime sudden death shot to win a game. Max Strus did that with the double overtime rule during Summer League. So it shows that he has big whatever you want to put it. But yeah, Clay, he showed a game across the board. He also rebounded. He also defended. He also made plays. He also led. And what I wrote about in my Ask Ira column is, I think the biggest takeaway I get from Max Strus is this, and I think this is important. Now when Duncan Robinson comes off the floor, the Heat at all times for 48 minutes can have a shooter on the court you cannot leave.
Yes.
It's called creating gravity. He's there. He's in his orbit. Someone has to watch him. No one can double as much on Bam or Jimmy or Kyle or anyone else in there. That's what the Heat came out of Summer League with. Now, unlike, a matter of fact, I'm going to put this back on you, Clay. Last season, Duncan Robinson goes out of the game. Who spaces the floor for three-point shooting when he's off the court? Maybe is 15, 16 minutes a game, maybe gets in foul trouble. Who was the guy who you felt comfortable enough with, okay, we could put him in it and still make threes at a high rate?
Well, it was only Strus, and it was because I was like, man, I kind of like what I see out of this guy.
Sure.
And but like, to your point, we hadn't seen it consistently yet to where you could say, okay, yeah, he's going to be that guy moving forward on a consistent basis. So like that to me was, I would say the most impressive thing was you're going to see that confidence grow, and you're going to see him feel like, okay, in those situations, I can do that. So let me take this a step further.
Sure.
We all know that Pat Riley is willing to trade anybody. Like to me, I always tell people the only jerseys I'd be willing to spend any money on are 13, 22, and 40. Like beyond that, I don't think you can count on anybody being there. So when you see Duncan Robinson sign a $90 million contract,
sure,
I wouldn't run out there and be so quick to buy a number 55 jersey, because you never know what's going to be on the horizon. And the Heat always have their eyes on who the potential next star is going to be. If the Heat were to ever make a move for a star, you still are you're going to change your offense, but you're still going to need that element of shooting in your rotation. So what this showed to me was Max Strus is getting closer to replicating what Duncan Robinson can do in your offense if he gets injured, right? And that's going to happen.
Foul trouble, things like that, sure.
He is going to be able to come close enough to replicating what he does in the offense. Now, is he going to have the same sort of effectiveness? No, because Duncan Robinson's one of the best 3 or 5 guys in the league at doing what he does. That's why he got $90 million. But what I think you want to make sure you have is that element. So what it showed me, Ira, is that you have so much more flexibility now with what you can do in your roster because he's showing what he can do.
Yeah, and again, because he made himself a roster player, and even Malik Allen, the Summer League coach, mentioned this also. This was not just about Max shooting threes. It was about showing he could be a more complete player, which he did. He has a good frame. He's a thick player. He can body up on you. That matters. That's why they've tried to work on Duncan Robinson's frame, and he really has changed and resculpted his body, so that matters also. Because, again, when you look at the guard rotation, Clay, to start this season, we're all hopeful that Victor Oladipo comes back and becomes a factor. But you're probably starting the season with Duncan Robinson, Jimmy Butler, and Kyle Lowry as your 3 wings, including the point guard there. You're probably saying your next wing off the bench is Tyler Hero. But you're going to need one more guy in that mix for sure, for foul trouble, for back-to-backs, for injuries, and things like that. I don't think the Heat knew if they had that, didn't know if they needed to add another player. Now I think there's greater confidence. And I want to go back to what I mentioned about three-point gravity also. You can make three-pointers, but if the opposition doesn't know about you and respect you, they're still going to leave you open.
Right.
So it's more than that. What Summer League did, and Malik Allen mentioned this, it gets you on the scouting report.
Right.
Omar Yurtseven put himself on scouting reports in Summer League. Max Strus put himself on Summer League, on scouting reports in Summer League. So now, at FTX Arena, when they're in the visiting locker room and they have the whiteboard there and they're putting up keys to the game, you know what? You're going to see Max Strus's name up there. You're going to see Omar Yurtseven's name up there. You wouldn't have with Max Strus last season. That's why Summer League mattered also. Hey, we saw this kid in Sacramento. We saw this kid in Vegas. We got to watch out for this kid. He can dump 20 on you if you don't That's why these 2 weeks were so important. He got on the scouting report. Now, part two, now that they know who he is, can he show that he's even more?
Yeah, and I think it's not even just that. We're not even saying that these guys are on the scouting report immediately. Like Strus is. And so that's what I said in the last segment. There are different levels to this. And so to your point, because you brought up, Art, they didn't know if they had that extra wing player in the rotation. There's another wing player that we had just mentioned that they spent 3 second-round picks on. Obviously a far different player. But I think as excited as you were if you're a Heat fan coming out of Summer League about Strus and Omer Yurtseven, I still think you got to be scratching your head about the other player that we mentioned. That's KZ Okpala. Where does he fit? Does he fit? And where is the vision you think for him stand right now compared to where it was when they drafted him?
Well, I'm going to go back to just last week when I wrote my story about how the Heat really have only 8 proven elements in their rotation because you still don't know about Yurtseven and Vincent and Strus. You're hopeful, but you don't know. And we also know that Victor Oladipo is going to miss at least the first half of the season. And we also know, I'm sure we'll get to him at some point, that Udonis Haslem will have towels waving the whole time during the game, maybe break a chair, maybe go in and break a cooler in the locker room, but he's not going to play a lot also. So the question was, are you going to have 3 players like that on the roster who can't be factors, one being KZ Okpala? Clay, I was a little heartened yesterday by what he did. And again, I know it's just Summer League. I know Dallas ended the game with only 6 players. But I've been saying to myself the entire week in Vegas, what can I make out of KZ Okpala? What can he be? I knew he could be a defender, but you know what? They had 4 or 5 other defenders on their roster. There's a bunch of players like that. That's heart, that's hustle, that's effort. That's one thing that a lot of people could bring to the table, but you got to play on both sides. At least yesterday in the game against Dallas, as I look at this box score right here, you could see that KZ Okpala hit 4 3-pointers. Clay, if he can at least be a 3-and-D player, you might be able to use him. If he can't make threes, he is so, I don't want to say dysfunctional. That's a little bit harsh of a word, but so lacking in offensive areas that you can't put him on the floor. You're playing 4 and 5 on offense. So I would hope as much time as he's put in this summer with the Nigerian national team, showing up to Summer League, playing in Las Vegas to the very finish, he's got to go to the gym and make that 3-point shot something, corner 3-pointers like Keith Askins, like all the other Heat and 3-and-D players. If he can do that, at least he can become usable. If you're asking me today, what is it, August 18th, whether I think that KZ Okpala can be a rotation player for the Heat, I do not, because the anomaly was the one game against the Mavericks to end Summer League. Otherwise, he's been lost on offense. He's a defensive hustler. This team needs more than a defensive hustler if they believe they can be contenders this season.
All I have to do is point to a couple of words in that, which was if and might. Like, if you're sitting there saying, if he can do this, then he might. Like, how much of a stretch does it have to be? And I'm with you. I think, unfortunately, you're sitting here and you're like, this is... When we look at somebody like Strus, I think you're pretty confident that he can go out there, like you said, and be a rotational player right now. Because he showed some things last year that made you feel like that already. Then he goes in Summer League and backs it up. You see Yurtseven, and you're like, man, he has stuff that just does not exist with a lot of players in the NBA. So if he grows into that role, you know, there's so much that KZ Okpala has to improve upon. And you're right. I mean, if it's
3 years in. Yeah.
Right. Like at some point you are who you are. And I think, was it Daryl Morey who said a few years ago that, you know, after 3 years, you kind of know who a player is.
Right.
And it's rare that you have somebody, he was discussing it in the context of Clint Capella, that it's rare that you have a player that after 3 years, you start to see this big leap. Like you can see small growth after that, but it's rare that, so you're sitting here looking at like, okay, when are we now? Part of that is that they knew he was a developmental prospect coming out, and he is still young. And but at some point, and this has been a weird couple of years, and yet at the same time, you want to see more. So I think this is an incredibly important offseason for him. The 6 weeks that we have left of it, to be able to prove that he can get there.
Yeah, 3 years in the league. This was his first Summer League, so he didn't have the typical rookie scale and build up. A lot of people have said, maybe you're seeing this in the comment section now, he needs to go to Sioux Falls, play in the G League, get churn minutes. But Clay, that's a tough call because it's also the end of his contract. Right. So you also want to see what he is in an NBA context because you will have a decision to make. spoke to someone with the Heat, very candid with me. They said they were really hoping that it was KZ and not Precious, the player who was thrown in with Goran in the deal to Toronto to get Kyle Lowry. That they felt there was more upside with Precious, and we saw it. He had a 19-point game, had that huge dunk in one of those summer league games.
That's really
He might be one who got a little bit away. I don't know about KZ. So again, he's had this very unusual rookie first two season arc. He has to make up for lost time now, but it's interesting, Clay. If we go through the rotation right now, I'm just going to throw names at you, just say yes or no, okay? Do these players definitively play ahead of KZ Okpala, okay? Bam Adebayo.
Of course.
PJ Tucker.
Yes.
Markieff Morris.
Yes.
Duncan Robinson.
Of course.
Jimmy Butler.
Of course.
Kyle Lowry.
Yep.
Tyler Hero.
Yes.
Omar Yurtseven. Okay, put number 8 as a maybe, okay?
Yeah.
Max Strus.
Yes.
Okay, Gabe Vincent.
Yes.
Okay, so either 10 or 11 players are ahead of KZ Okpala.
And you didn't even mention Dedmon.
And Dedmon also. So, okay,
Yeah.
so let's say 11 or 12 players ahead of him. So that's the thing is, whether he could do it or not, you have to show me at some point in a certain time frame, or else the train leaves the station and you have to move on. So you're not, hopefully, we're not going to get the COVID games again. We're not going to get that 2-game series when you're in Philadelphia and you have 8 players and barely enough to push through and anyone and everyone plays. Hopefully you won't have enough garbage games at the end of the season where you're either locked out of a playoff seed or locked into a playoff seed where guys can just get run. So I don't see many opportunities out there. I would have thought he can contend for backup minutes at power forward. He's shown nothing that tells me he's in that position. So again, maybe some Sioux Falls, maybe some more preseason, but I think the train has sort of moved on there, for better or worse, for fair or not fair.
And you hit on something there when you were talking about Okpala, about potentially going to Sioux Falls, and you want to see it in the context of how he does with the NBA, with NBA players. And I want to tie this into Udonis Haslem coming back. And you mentioned UD and what his role on the team is, because we got a couple minutes left in this segment. And you know, I think it's the constant debate amongst Heat fans. We started this off with the debate that you fired up with Dwayne Dedmon versus Omer Yurtseven. But this thing with, like, what is Udonis Haslem really worth the last spot on the roster for the Miami Heat when you could have all these other developmental players come in and be in the gym? I think the thing that I always fall back on with this, Ira, is if any player, and KZ Okpala is kind of the one who's the outlier here because he's already, we're already talking about 3 years in. He needs to see what he's like with NBA players. Any developmental player that would be taking Udonis Haslem's roster spot would be much better served to be in Sioux Falls anyway and get actual minutes and then come in. So the way I've always fallen on this, Ira, is the last roster spot on the Heat should go to somebody who is going to help the Heat win a championship, going to help the Heat win. And Udonis Haslem plays a much bigger role in that, with all of the stuff that he does off the floor and his presence in that huddle, than a 14th, 15th player who'd probably be better served getting real minutes in Sioux Falls anyway.
Except this season is the exception, because they're only carrying 14 because of the luxury tax. So they're not filling, at least till later in the season, as of now, that 15th spot.
But who are you missing? I guess that would be my question. Who are you, like, who
I'm missing honestly, I'm missing a backup point guard. I'm missing a veteran guy like a Jeff Teague, who, if he doesn't play at all, he's used to that. And when Kyle Lowry misses 10 games, I don't have to force, and we can talk about this next segment, Gabe Vincent into the equation, whether he's ready or not. That's what I'm missing. Who am I missing, Clay? You made a very good point about developmental players, but if they're not under contract to you and in Sioux Falls, anyone can poach them. If I can get a Marcus Garrett or a DeJon Jarreau under contract and then send him to Sioux Falls, then he's my player also. This is a much different situation. You're not filling roster spot 15. So he's at 14. Only you have Victor Oladipo not playing half the season. Only you have KZ Okpala, who you're carrying through the final part of the season. That's the difference. Usually you would tell me this: Ira, I've got 14 functional players. Who gives a rat's butt about 15? I also got two ways. And I go, damn it, Clay Ferraro, you're right again. This is a different kind of season, and that's the difference.
This is why you're a pro, Ira, because you didn't even know it, but you led me perfectly into what I want to talk about in our last segment, is that backup point guard spot. And there's a name that's out there. And I know that the Heat can't sign anybody because of the tax. And like Pat Riley said, you don't want to go into the tax. I'll never forget that news conference. The tax. Well, the tax is there and Mickey Urson doesn't want to pay it. So
more to it than that with the repeater tax. We'll get to that also.
I understood. And yet when you don't have – but I do think that there's a name out there and there will be potentially more names that you can find a way to bring in. So let's talk about that coming up next right here on Inside the Paint.
Reach out to Ira and Clay. Drop them an email at insidethepaint@yahoo.com. Chime in on the YouTube chat board. You're listening to the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines. If you're a Miami sports fan, then there's only one store to go to, and that's Caneswear at Miami Fanwear in Davie. They're your one-stop shop for all your Inter Miami CF, Canes, Dolphins, Panthers, and Marlins merchandise. They have hats, t-shirts, game day jerseys, and so much more. Located at 2511 South University Drive in Davie, and open 24/7 online at caneswear.com or intermiamiwear.com. Call them at 954-835-5597. Caneswear, the spot where Inter Miami and all Miami sports fans shop.
This is the Big O Show. 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 This is the Big O Show.
When you need your warehouse looking good while staying efficient, there's only one place to find the finest racks in the business. Pallet Rack City in Hialeah. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Pallet Rack City is the company you need when you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business. After all, who doesn't love a great rack? Pallet Rack City. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Welcome back to the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint program with Ira Winderman and Clay Ferraro. Let's get back to the guys that just updated their email from Prodigy to AOL. Here's Ira and Clay.
The AOL joke gets me every time. Winding it down here on Inside the Paint, Ira joining me. So, you texted me something last night. We go back and forth on what topics we're going to discuss. And one of the things that you brought up that, hey, let's get right to it. If this is the end of this roster, if you look at the roster as it's currently constructed, is this enough for the Heat to compete?
Oh, it's interesting, your word choice there, because you could say compete or contend.
Okay, contend.
Aha, contend. Now you already raised the bar within 10 seconds here.
Always contend.
I consider contending making at least the conference finals, making the Final Four. I'm not sold right now, not as much because of the Heat roster, but because of the competition. Look, we don't know who the final two in the West are going to be, but they'll be pretty darn good. But if you're asking me, is this Heat roster better than Brooklyn's roster? It is not. If you're asking me, is this Heat roster better than the Milwaukee Bucks roster? It is not. If you're asking me, could this roster contend with the 76 rosters? It can. If you're asking me whether it can contend with the Celtics and Knicks, it can. So I think this team can compete. I don't think this team can contend right now. Now, you have 82 games for someone to step up, for the next Duncan Robinson to arrive, for Bam Adebayo to put himself so firmly in the All-Star discussion. There is no debate about who's going to that game on the 75th anniversary in Cleveland this year. So there's time for that. But right now, contender, no. Competitive, yes. And I think, Clay, as we know, because of the machinations and the tax, it'll all have to come, at least for now, internally.
So two questions in about that. Did you feel the same way 2 years ago, going into the season where the Heat ended up making it? Did you feel like that was a contending team that year?
To use my expert analysis, hell no.
That's where I was
right.
at.
And again, you get to the playoffs and it's wide open. And I do agree, Clay, this team is built for the playoffs. But it used to be just get to the playoffs. I remember Shaq mumbling, doesn't matter what seed you get, I've won for the first, fourth, and he's won championships from all the seeds. The difference is what happened last year in the NBA, the play-in round. No longer can you just pussyfoot around and say, I'm going to get a top 8 seed and move forward. Got to get a top 6 seed. And Clay, you remember that final week of last season, those 2 games in Boston, the Heat had to win both of them. They did. They survived. They didn't go to the play-in. The Celtics did. So it's a lot tougher now to say, we're built for the playoffs. We're going to rest guys. We're going to get there. Even in the East, I'm not saying it will happen, but I'm saying in the Eastern Conference, with Milwaukee and Brooklyn and Philadelphia and Boston and New York, at least, you might have to fight for number 6. So this team has to still find a way to competitively get through the regular season also. That's where my questions might be as well.
Well, that's fair. And I guess what I would say is, when we're sitting here on August 18th and we're trying to figure out, is this team a contender? I'll always fall back on, I didn't think that team was going to make a run in the bubble. And it changed. I still, to this day, like if you put those rosters on paper, the Heat and that Celtics team, the Heat and that Bucks team, and this was before Ben Simmons got hurt and Joel Embiid was there were a number of teams that I would have put ahead of the Heat going into that Eastern Conference playoff run. So I will forever look at this in the context of, I feel like this team, especially with Jimmy Butler, I feel like they can do it if they get there. So that's another question. So this is the only reason why I'm going back to this is because I want everybody to understand the context where we're coming in. We're not sitting here being naive, pie in the sky, saying this team is going to go out there and win a championship. It's very easy, and I'm with you, that I don't think this roster is as good as Brooklyn and Milwaukee. But if they get there, I feel like they can compete and make a run. So is there anything they could do today on August 18th or between now and September 28th when the training camps tip off? Is there anything they can do to change your mind and make you feel like they can, short of landing a star, a true star?
Well, again, I know where you're headed. So could they? Yes. Will they? I'm not so sure. To explain to people the luxury tax, and look, I can't stand this line of reasoning, and I'm sure you're getting it on the text line. Why is Mickey Harrison so cheap? The luxury tax is not a matter of dollars spent. The Heat have spent into this stratosphere when they were the ultimate contenders. Teams like Brooklyn and the Warriors are doing it now also. But the repeater tax comes into play and can cripple a franchise when you're in that repeater tax 3 out of a 5-year period. Every player you sign a minimum guy. We're seeing this right now in Brooklyn. A guy for nothing, a guy for beans. And all of a sudden you're talking about an 8-figure hit on your luxury tax. So you have to be prudent. It's like saying, why doesn't Mickey Harrison have a gazillion ships that he can fill? Well, you only have so many port berths in the port of Miami. So you have to conduct business within the confines of what you have. So the Heat go into the luxury tax if they sign any other player and fill that 15th roster spot, whether it's a former All-Star, whether it's a developmental player. Would I like to see this team add another veteran point guard? I've only been saying that for about the last 15 years. Does the Heat have the wherewithal right now to do it? No, they do not.
So, and clarify this for me, because you said 3 out of 5 years for the repeater tax. How many times have they been in the tax the last few years?
They were in the tax, I believe, 3 years ago. They're putting off that clock, but, and I might be wrong on that number, but this is what matters more, Clay. When you now factor in, starting this season, Bam's extension, Kyle Lowry's contract, Jimmy Butler's contract, $90 million over 5 years for Duncan Robinson, I don't think they'll be able to avoid the luxury tax in the next couple of seasons. So, again, that goes back to our argument, compete versus contend. So if you're just having competitive seasons, but not necessarily contending seasons. Is that when you want to put yourself at risk? Or do you want to wait when you say to yourself, you know what, next year we're going to have a full mid-level if we want. We're going to go into the tax. We're going to get that other player at $10 million plus. Maybe we'll get a trade exception or something, add another player. So it's more forward-thinking, Clay, than anything else when it comes to the tax.
Jay and Ray, thank you guys for the kind comments. Really appreciate that. And again, if you guys have any questions, drop them right there. I'm glad you clarified that because – and Rajon Rondo is the name that's out there.
Sure.
And I believe he's guaranteed for $7.5 million this year. If he's bought out, then obviously you're talking about a minimum. So the issues that you would run into are twofold. Number one, the thing you're seeing is, just trade KZ Okpala for him. Well, first off, you need somebody to want KZ Okpala. Sure. Secondly, if he's bought out, then and if that trade were to go through, he's still making more than Okpala would make.
You can't afford to bring in a player on anything more than a minimum contract now, or more than KZ Okpala, unless you trade other players there also. So you're really talking about a buyout, whether it's Rondo, maybe even Patrick Beverley in Minnesota. We'll see what happens there. A lot of these were salary cap machinations more than necessarily wanting the players. There are some teams overloaded at point guard, but again, you cannot bring in any human body, any human being additional to your roster right now without going over the tax, unless you can offload KZ. Maybe someone takes him for a second-round pick. Maybe you throw enough cash into the deal where someone's going to be below the salary cap floor, has to spend on someone anyway. You have enough money. You can send KZ Okpala's contract and that amount of cash to pay off his contract to another team and to create that roster spot. So that is possible.
Yeah, and those, but it's a lot of gymnastics basically. And you're right. Is it possible? Yes, but you need so much. So it's not as simple as just saying, okay, bring this guy in,
right,
and all that. And I guess what I would ask you then is Rajon Rondo or Patrick Beverley the type of player that would change your mind from being a competitive team to a contending team?
I'm not sure they would raise the bar that much because neither's a great three-point shooter. Rondo, he had the bubble shooting when he was off the charts, in the playoffs that one season, but otherwise he really hasn't shown it. So then you have a thing again. Let's say you have a Rajon Rondo. Let's say he gets over anything he had with Jimmy Butler during the Hoiberg era in Chicago. But if you're going to have Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo and Rajon Rondo on the floor, my God, your spacing is going to be hellaciously poor. So you have that. But I need someone to get you into offense. Kyle Lowry comes off the floor because he's going to come off the floor at some point. Kyle Lowry is injured because he's old. He's going to get injured at some point. What do you do then? What we've seen, Clay, in recent seasons is you'd have Bam Adebayo operating the offense from the elbow, is you'd have Jimmy Butler advancing the ball. But if you want to unlock all the special things those two guys do, I think you need to free them up a little bit more.
Yes.
That was the entire point of Kyle Lowry. God bless Goran Dragic, not necessarily the playmaker, more of an offensive threat than Kyle Lowry is. So you brought Kyle Lowry in. My problem is you take Kyle Lowry off the court, I don't even see another point guard. I don't even know if there's another point guard delineation position-wise. I know Eric Spoelstra doesn't want to hear any of that in his positionless world, but I don't know if there's another player you'd even say he's a point guard. The closest thing on this roster, I guess, is Gabe Vincent or Victor Oladipo, and Victor's not going to be around for at least the first half of the season.
And they tried to make Tyler Hero into that, and it didn't work.
Please do not do that. Yeah. Do not do that again. You've got 1 year before you have to deal with this rookie scale extension. Put him in a role, lock him in a role, say,
yes,
look, if we're going to pay him for another 5 years, we want to know that he can do X rather than X, Y, and Z. Create a comfort zone for Tyler Hero. Don't get him caught up in your roster mishmash positionally.
And let me tell you something. I love Pat.
Well, I see Clay has taken his usual break during our show, so I'll pick it up for here. And I know where Clay was going also with this, and as far as Gabe Vincent and whether he could be the guy who could step in right now for the Heat and become their backup point guard. And my whole point on this, Clay and Big O, has been this. If you play Gabe Vincent, and I know that Clay was going to ask about Gabe, and if you're going to play Gabe
this is the weird
Vincent,
thing. Ira, I don't know why this seems to happen at 10 minutes.
Same point in every show.
I got to figure this out. Maybe I have to sign off during one of the commercials. But this is what I was going to say. Not to cut you off, but the direction I love Pat Riley news conferences for two reasons and
sure,
the Zoom code. Number one, for us on Local 10. We love the sound bites. We love
absolutely.
I'm always looking for a whale, and there are obstacles, but there are none, like all that. But I love when you can kind of see what he's saying behind those sound bites. And something that I don't think got enough play in his last postseason news conference was that Bam Adebayo was being asked to do too much. And he was essentially saying that Spo was asking him to do too much, especially on the offensive side of the floor. And I've said this before, you can't ask Bam to be Giannis on the defensive side of the floor and Nikola Jokic on the other. So to your point about the point guard position, I think this goes with Jimmy Butler as well. Just because they can do something, just because they can get you into the offense, doesn't mean they should,
right?
Because then it takes you away from the other things that make them great. So I'm with you. I'm going to be really curious, and you mentioned this in the last segment about how good the Heat developmental staff is and the assistant coaching staff at getting players to work on specific things. What is it that they ask Gabe Vincent to do? If they ask him to strictly be a point guard and grow into that role, then I think it kind of tells you where they're at with that. But if not, then I do think that it opens the door for them to bring in somebody, because I'm with you. Kyle Lowry is going to miss time, and that means you're then going to have to ask either Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, or a combination of all three of those guys to undertake a role that they can do, but it takes away from what they do best.
And Clay, and I was mentioning this when we lost connectivity here for a couple of seconds, is about Gabe Vincent. He's sort of being cast right now as the backup point guard. In other words, if you're filling those boxes on your charts, center, 1 through 3, power forward, everything, Gabe Vincent probably shows up number 2 behind Kyle Lowry at point guard. But think who Gabe Vincent was when they signed him out of the Stockton Kings in the G League. He was a lights-out three-point shooter. He was what Max Strus might be now, or even Duncan Robinson. They tried to develop him a little more into a defender. He was very good, I thought, defensively last season. But he might be another guy who's simply not a point guard. You're trying to make him what he's not. During the Olympics, and I mentioned this in a previous show we did, the analyst who was calling a Nigeria game said, the problem is Nigeria starts every game with Gabe Vincent a point guard and then realizes we need his shooting. They move him off the ball to get him back to his spots. 1, can Gabe Vincent still be a shooter while being a playmaker? Or else you're taking his best NBA level skill and you're sort of pushing it off to the side.
Yeah.
Or should you just say, you know what? Even though, as a matter of fact, this is how we started the show talking about this, even though they have Duncan Robinson as a three-point shooter, even though Max Strus has developed as a three-point shooter, you could never have enough of them these days.
Right.
You maybe want 2 of them on the floor at a time. That's what they tried to do with Gabe last season. So that's the thing, is I'm not so sure that also doesn't become a force feed type of situation where Gabe is being asked to be point guard to the detriment of his NBA level three-point shooting. I want to see how that plays out. Again, we may say Tyler shouldn't play point guard, but maybe he surprises us in the preseason. We may say Gabe is not up to it, but maybe he shows that in the preseason. But the weird thing about the Heat clock is, where they are under the luxury tax, to sort of wrap this in a bow, they really won't be able to add another player right now between mid-season and late in the season. So this is going to become quite the waiting game unless they go into the tax, unless they make a transaction to open enough to bring in a minimum player, and there will always be a veteran point guard. Whether it's Patrick Beverly shaking free in Minnesota, I don't think so. Whether it's Rajon Rondo shaking free, seems all he's done is be traded the last 5 years. He's played for like every team in the league. Or maybe whether it's a Jeff Teague type, someone who's still out there and available, just so you can feel confident that here's a guy who can get us into offense. Again, to me, when I do my 10 questions going into training camp 6 weeks from now, I have no question that point guard will be one of them. Depth at point guard.
And to your point originally, and I'm going to use this to transition because I'm sure Big O is going to talk some football coming up in the next segment. You hear this all the time from the best football coaches. It's, what is your vision for the player? In other words, you're going to put the player in a position to do what he does best.
Correct.
And you're not going to ask the player. And it's why you'll see a lot of times, and you see this in the NFL a lot, a player be really good on one team, signs an enormous free agent deal, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness, what happened? Like Nnamdi Asomugha was a guy who was outstanding, a cornerback with the Raiders, and he went inside a big deal and fell off the map. Well, sometimes guys are good in man, they're not good in zone, vice versa. In the NBA, what the Heat have done really well with developing players is figure out their strengths and play to their strengths. And you don't want to be in a position where, you mentioned Gabe Vincent being such a great shooter, you're forcing a square peg into a round hole.
Correct.
You don't want him to be, and I think that's what you're saying. And so I think I'm with you. I think by mid-season, they're going to be looking to add a playmaker. Maybe not now, but when you get to the point where you're able to add somebody and not
And you know what, Clay? And they're good at that because midseason last year we said they've got to add another big body. God bless him. Dwayne Dedman showed up. He filled the niche. So they're good at filling those boxes, the round holes with the round pegs. Eventually it might take some time. They'll survive. The awkwardness of it is the Victor Oladipo situation. Maybe he's your backup point guard. He's played some point guard. He played some when he came in with the Heat for his brief 1 week last season before he had the quadriceps injury. It could be as simple as that. Even if he's not on the floor until midseason or later, maybe he gets to work at practice where you say, hey, he looked good on the practice court today running the offense. We can't wait till January, February, or March. Maybe it's that simple also. We'll see how much of a healer he is.
So hopefully it's not just Heat fans holding their breath that Kyle Lowry is able to play every minute until January.
48
February, right?
every game when we're fine, back-to-backs. You know what? You got the money, now play the time.
Ira, thanks so much, my man. Inside the Paint, we do it every single Wednesday here. And guys, as always, we like to make this interactive. Thanks for your comments. Thanks for your questions. The Big O Show rolls on next. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Pallet Rack City Inside the Paint program with Ira Winterman and Clay Ferraro, exclusively on the Big O Radio Show. Search Big O Radio Show on most platforms. Subscribe and smash the like button to support Inside the Paint. If you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business, there's only one choice: Pallet Rack City. When you need your warehouse looking good while staying efficient, there's only one place to find the finest racks in the business: Pallet Rack City in Hialeah. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547. Pallet Rack City is the company you need when you want your warehouse sporting the finest racks in the business. After all, who doesn't love a great rack? Pallet Rack City. 305-424-8547. That's 305-424-8547.
This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zins Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
The viewpoint, statements, or beliefs expressed on the following program by the host, guests, or callers are not necessarily the opinions of FantasyXS.com, Media Group Inc. ownership, management, sponsors, or website. When it comes to South Florida sports teams, very few in the media have witnessed, lived, and covered it like the Big O. Let's start the program dedicated to your favorite South Florida teams with a passion that's unmatched. The Big O Radio Show is on. Here's the Big O.
All righty, welcome back. Hour 2.5 here is we're in the back end of the second hour. Basically, I think that's kind of the. Although if you're listening on the podcast, this will be like the start of the third hour, really, because that's how we'll break it down. Just so I don't have to, because the Pallet Rack City is kind of in the middle of 2.5 hours, so we just, put it out that way anyway. So appreciate all of you as always, and great show. Ira and Clay, just absolutely phenomenal hour. This is, I think it's a must listen to hour for Heat fans. And one of the things that when we were putting all of this together, obviously when we were doing the podcast and I ended up having the throat issues and in late December, I'm sorry, I stopped the podcast because remember I was still doing Onside. So I had to make a decision, and I could not do both shows every day because I had the polyp in my throat, and I didn't know at that time what the hell was going on, so I fixed it and fine and all that. But when we had the podcast before, we would have guests, but we didn't have these kind of elements that we now have that are permanent now every week. And you'll get Omar twice a week, and you're going to get Manny Navarro twice a week, and you're going to get Ira twice a week, and you're going to get Alan Poupart twice a week. And then obviously here inside the paint, once a week. And Ira and I had this conversation, and I strongly feel this. I know I can talk football year round in this town, but we've gotten to the point now where we can talk basketball also year round in this town. It wasn't like that years ago, but thanks to Pat Riley, he's kind of made that. And that's why I wanted to add this element to the show on a weekly basis, because I think it's where, it's what's needed nowadays. And again, I think it's exactly what, Ira was talking about, that you're not going to get this on local radio anywhere else. You're not really getting it anywhere else. You're not going to get this kind of talk. What we do all day long, every single day, all the insiders and everything else that and we're not even done yet. And so I appreciate all of you out there, and I'm trying to do, a little something for everybody. If you're a soccer fan, you're not going to hear any kind of inner talk in any of the other stations, right? I mean, most of those guys probably don't even follow the team. They don't even know anything about the team. You know what I mean? So you're going to get things here that you're not going to get anywhere else, and that's what I'm trying to create here. And really great job by Ira and Clay. And for those of you that are basketball fans, that is one show you should lock in, subscribe, and share with other Heat fans, so they know that Ira and Clay are on every week. And you get Ira on 3 times a week here. You get him on Tuesdays, you get him on Wednesdays, and then you get him on Fridays. And Tuesdays and Fridays, obviously, he's got our Acura Pembroke Pines Miami Heat and NBA report. So for those of you that don't know, if you're just tuning in, just catching us, those are all the things that we've got going on here on the program, and more to come. I promise you, more to come. We appreciate it. And yesterday, again, another amazing day in downloads. I mean, it is just absolutely crazy what happened yesterday. So thank you all out there for the support that you're giving us, as we broke more records yesterday. And it's a blessing. It really is a blessing. I have not done any roll call yet. And so I know Steve Chapman was in, NorCal in. Chapman is always number one in there. Ian from Brooklyn, Anthony Manzano, Dolphin C Pants. Now, I know some of you may not be here because maybe you tuned out during basketball and you're back, and you know how it is. Some people are in, some people are out, and all that. But I appreciate those of you that are stuck around. NorCal is in. He says, roll up a fatty for Wake and Bake. Puff, ready to give. No giving right now. We got that Delta variant going around. No giving, okay? Tremolio is in. Free the code, he says. Martin Leiden is in, saying afternoon, chaps. Afternoon for you, maybe, right? I don't know. What time is it there? What are you guys, like 5 hours ahead of us, or 6 hours? I think it is. Something like that. Jose Celdran, Don Parlamento, Herman Cueva, R. Rod, Big Bob, Gus 1388. Anthony Manzano says, can you see this possibly being a move that solidifies our right tackle position with Greg Little and keeping Liam at left guard if Kinley continues to struggle with his weight? I don't think Kinley's deal is weight. I think Kinley's deal is, consistency. I think it's more about hand placement and all that kind of stuff. I think it's technique is where Kinley needs to improve. And no, I don't. I think Greg will be here to fight for one of the tackle positions, if not back up one of the tackle positions. That's about it. Let's see. Operation Theater says, we lost out on center Eric McCoy for the Rosen trade. Saints took him with our pick. Okay. Austin Jackson. I always love the people that just want to complain just to complain. Meanwhile, your team won 10 games last year. And it's like, it's not enough now. It's just because you live in the past. That's why. And you think like things are shitty now or something. Things are great as Dolphin fans. Did you see what they did? Did you notice that they turned around the whole team and they turned it over and they went from 5 to 10 wins? They almost made the playoffs in their second year. I mean, again, complaining now and about a pick that they got or somebody else got or whatever. It's just, man, it is just really sad, to be honest with you. KBH Finance guy says, Austin Jackson is the whipping boy for the Dolphin fans this year. I believe in him, and I don't care what people say. We just, listen, maybe he's a guy, and maybe he's not. But giving up on him right now, that makes no sense at all. Morning Big O, smash the like. Operation Theater is in. He says, XRP to the moon. Timo Palmer says, Greer has been there for over 20 years. Yeah, right. Stupid ass, lazy take. He's only been in charge for the last couple of years. That's what counts. Obviously, if they Timo Palmer, I mean, listen, dude, I'll say this one time for you, okay? If you don't understand this, I can't help you. All right? He's been there for 20 years. Why do you think every regime change they kept him? And all scouts, do you think they write their reports and it's like you, that you give an opinion that nobody gives a shit about and you were wrong, but nobody's going to follow up on it because nobody follows up on your prediction? You get what I'm saying? That's not that way. Scouts, they put it down. It's all in a hard drive. So obviously when a new general manager took over and a new coach took over, and they looked at the scouting department, they kept keeping that guy in place. But last time I checked, Timo Palmer, I just want to remind you, he's black. I don't know if you know that, but Chris Grier is black. That's why it took 20 years to actually give him the job. And look what he's done in 2 years. So obviously, his scouting reports must have been pretty damn good, because if they sucked, they would have fired him a long time ago. But they kept him around. Now, they didn't elevate him because he's black. I just want you to know that. Because I don't know if you know that. Because somehow or another, I don't know if you know the minorities don't get really a fair shake at times. Not sure if you know that. I mean, it's the dumbest, lazy ass take. One stupid ass says, whoa, he's been there for 20 years. Like he's the guy picking all the players and doing all the trades behind the scenes. Yeah, he's doing it for Jeff Ireland, and he's doing it for Rick Spielman, and he did it for Jimmy, and he did it for Wannstedt, and he did it for Cam Cameron, and he did it for Philbin, and he did it for Gase, and he did it for everybody else. Yeah, no, of course. They were always listening to him. That's why the team was in such trouble all the time. I mean, seriously, man. Some of you, at least, like Timo, dude, at one point or another, think for yourself. Think for yourself. That's all I'm saying. Don't be a freaking sheep and just follow the herd. And then one dumbass says something and you think it's actually smart, but you didn't actually look into it. Oh, no, he's been there for 20 years. So just because one clueless idiot said it, we've got thousands of clueless idiots that follow the same thing. And you never think about it, right? Well, if they kept him around, I wonder why they kept him around. And I wonder why they didn't elevate him. He's black. Not sure. I don't know if, you follow things and follow life. I'm not sure there, Timo Palmer. Seriously, if you got lazy takes, don't bring them here. I'm going to crush your ass. Seriously. Bone says, music to my ears because people always crabbing about draft picks and not paying attention to the bigger picture with Flores and Greer. Yeah, like Timo. Jamie says, Big O, Fins from San Jose. Fins up from San Jose. What are the players you want to see against Atlanta to continue their development? Noting it's still preseason. Offensive line, man. Offensive line. I want to see some push. I want to see something for the running game and keep Tua clean. I don't want Austin Jackson rolling up on his legs. Stay up, Austin. Keep your balance. Operation Theater says, who wasn't wanting Tua in the 2020 draft? I mean, whatever, bro. What are you going to do? Nizzle says, Justin Fields and Herbert ball out this year and Tua stumbles, Greer is gone. I mean, if you want to believe stupid-ass stuff like that, you can go ahead and do that, but they're not going to fire him. Not that quickly. And you know what I love about that is, what if Tua kicks ass and then the other guys don't? Then you won't show up anywhere. You won't even come back to say, I was wrong. Because really, that's kind of what you're doing already. You're kind of setting yourself up because you're already against Greer. So you're already having Tua fail, and you already have Greer fired. It's amazing. After all this time, some of you just, you just can't stay away from the negativity. It's got to be. They went from 5 to 10 wins. The team's getting better, but all you can think about is negative shit. Yeah, let's just think about Tua failing. And let's fire Chris Greer. How about Tua kicking ass and Chris Greer kicking ass? What's wrong with that? Why don't you imagine that instead? Because so far, that's what they've been doing is kicking ass. They cleaned up the cap. They tore down the team. They got rid of all the bad salaries. They loaded up on draft picks. They got a bunch of young guys. They still have more draft picks to come. The Tunsil trade continues to give and give and give. But no, let's just, let's just talk about it going to be terrible. Mitchell Young is in. Omar Lopez is in. Ty Young is in. Or T-Yan is in. C. Dola in. Jay Gelfin, thank you, Jay. Ray in. David Norton. Call of Duty. Sergio Romero says, hey, I didn't get a chance to listen yesterday. Did you talk about Salguero leaving the Herald? Yeah, I talked about that last week, leaving the Herald. Not this week. Already talked about that last week. Not a fan of the website because I'm not a fan of Clay Travis, to be honest with you. You know me, bro. I don't bullshit. I call it like it is. And that dude, I know where that agenda is. Juan Burgos is in. Big Bob in Biloxi to go all in on the Dolphins, 9.5 wins. Man, every time I go to Mobile, there's always an afternoon where I drive down to Biloxi, go to the Hard Rock, gamble a little bit, then go back. It's only 45 minutes away. I like Biloxi. It's fun. It's fun to go by and hang out a little bit. Have fun there, Big Bob. I appreciate you, man. And Dolphins, yeah, go over. They're going to win 11, 12 games. QWERTY C is in. Thomas Cook, Juan Burgos, Lisa Rose. Lisa, I hope you're feeling better. I hope the knee is better. Herman Cueva. I've heard of that dude saying that Greer has been in the team for 20 years. I got in an argument with this butthead about it. Yeah, it's just a stupid, lazy-ass take. Like Greer was pulling all the strings behind the scenes. So a dumbass. It's just, seriously, it's just, they don't think for themselves. Big O watching from Gotham City in The Dark Knight Rises, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hit that like button. He is right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, GP. Jean Almighty. Dolphin fans complain just because I can't with them. R. Carrillo says, love the roast. Oh, you're going to get roasted if you say stupid ass shit here. Did you hear Colin Cowherd praising Flores? Somebody sent me the video. I don't watch Colin Cowherd. I don't listen, but I did watch the video. And what's he saying? The stuff that I've been talking about for the last 2 years. It's like, yeah, dude, I know you don't follow the Dolphins. You don't know jack about the Dolphins. Just shut the hell up. I can't listen to the guy, bro. I don't know why any of you even waste your time. Q Susie says, O-line, I believe, is mental toughness. That's why Richie Incognito was so valuable till Bullygate. I need guys that will run through a wall for you. It's It's a little of both because I think Solomon Kinley has plenty of toughness, but he doesn't have plenty of technique. And he's got to learn at this level. It's not just that you're going to get up and maul the guy in front of you, because the guy in front of you is not going to stand right in front of you and allow you to maul him. So he's going to have some moves, and you're going to have to counter with those moves. You're going to have to counter with your feet. And you look at Austin Jackson this past week, he was out of balance. Why? Because he was reaching, and his footwork was late. He's got to do better. He's got to be better prepared in getting in his set and moving along. So it's really about technique for a guy like Austin Jackson and consistency. It's about technique and consistency for Solomon Kinley. I don't think it's Austin Jackson's a guy that gave bone marrow and had no offseason and then didn't miss a game for USC. So he's tough. It's not about toughness. Austin Jackson's a tough dude. Solomon Kinley's a tough dude. But it's the mental side of all of this. It's the technique side of all of this. This is where you separate the men from the boys. Because in high school and in college, you were much more talented more often than not than the guy across from you. In the NFL, you're not. In the NFL, the guy across from you is as talented or more talented than you. And that's what Austin Jackson and Solomon Kinley are running into now. And that's why they have to develop consistency, because they're meeting people that are either their equal or better, and they better find a way to do a much better job of protecting the quarterback or opening up some holes for the running game. So it's not just about toughness. And I don't believe toughness has anything to do with the issues on the left side of the line for the Miami Dolphins. Jamie says, this is hilarious, but so true. Minorities do not get the same opportunities, some environments more than others, of course. Yeah, of course. Come on, dude. I mean, give me a break. Greg Sporting Wood, Big O, you were a fan of Dan Campbell. Curious if you think he will. No, I was not. I'm not. Greg Sporting Wood, I'm not sure if you know that. I was never a fan of Dan Campbell. I was laughing my ass off when they were doing the Oklahoma drills here. Now, I'm not a fan of Dan Campbell. Never have been, okay? I think he's just a meathead that is a head coach now. I think he's just a raw guy, and I don't think he's going to out-coach anybody. He thinks he can out-motivate people. And unfortunately, we go back to Austin Jackson, we go back to Solomon Kinley, and we'll go back to Dan Campbell. It's here, dude. It's here. You can rah, you can talk, you can try to inspire all you want. You better outthink the guys on the other side of the field. You better out-scheme them. You better out-prepare them. You better put your players in positions to be successful, because if you don't and they're not having success, then they're going to turn you off. And I think this rah crap of Dan Campbell runs out of gas when it's all said and done. It's all funny now. It's all fun and games. But when Lions fans see that the difference isn't happening on the standings, they're going to go, yeah, I've seen this story. I'm out. So, no, I have never been a Dan Campbell guy. Okay? Never. At all. So, no, I don't buy that kind of coaching. I think it's just a dog and pony show. Fred Davis is in. He says, I miss the old Miami Stadium. We all do, my friend. We all do. Chris Doherty says, Big O, do you think our O-line is looking better to you? I do. Also, do you think the O-line coaching has been the problem? Not tons of players that we've had. The media just saw they were garbage. Well, they have a new O-line coach. They've had a couple of them already. So we got to give this guy time to actually work with his team. And no, I'm not happy with the O-line right now. I'm not satisfied. They kind of did enough this week in the passing game, but barely. Not good enough, but they kind of did enough. In the running game, they did zero. They got to improve. Now they're young. Dougie Fresh says, minorities were not in position of power for centuries here in the U.S. The Jeffersons wrote the song for Greer. Took a whole lot of trying just to get up that hill. Now we're moving on up. Yep, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. J. Gab Corona says, root for my Fins regardless. There you go. Fred Soros is in Michigan. Thank you, sir. I really don't get it why this bunch of toxic fans keep on watching the team I should just simply stop watching the Dolphins. That's it. Yeah, I mean, you're already, when you're sitting there going, well, Tua's going to suck and they should fire Greer. And it's like, okay, the season hasn't started. You're not giving the people chances. And Greer has done a phenomenal job to this point. Why would you even be thinking that? Right? It's like, wait a minute. Hold on a second. They eliminated the cap issues. They loaded up with a bunch of picks. The team is one of the youngest teams in the NFL. I think it's like either the first or second youngest, maybe third, maybe, but it's one of the youngest teams in the NFL, right? They may have already found their coach. I think they did. I think they found the quarterback, but he hasn't proven it yet, but still. So you're talking about a GM that within 2 years fixed all the cap issues, found a quarterback and a coach. If that's true, that's one of the greatest jobs ever in Dolphin history. You got to go back to Shula and go to the perfect, teams and all that from back in the early 70s. I mean, give me a break, dude. Come on. R-Rod says, Big O, most Dolphin fans have suffered so long, they don't know how to have hope or what a good team looks like anymore. Better to be negative than set themselves up for disappointment. R-Rod, that makes a lot of sense. It's like psychologically, right? I kind of understand that, but I don't subscribe to it. I subscribe to reality. And when I watch Joe Philbin, I know what the reality is. When I'm watching Flo, I got hope, man. When I'm watching what Greer and Flo are doing, I got hope. And so, if anything, at first, I'm going to be hopeful. Until you show me that you can't do it, then I'll become negative and I'll say, okay, we're screwed. It's like Manny Diaz. Can you imagine if Flo did what Manny Diaz did the first 2 years, how this fan base would be? See, that's the difference. See, Manny Diaz has been a clown show. He talks a good game. That's why I told you that for me, everything going on in Coral Gables right now, it's like the Peanuts teacher. Wah, 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 wah. So for 2 years, yeah, whatever. You got Rhett Lashley, okay. You got King to transfer. That's freaking fantastic. You're getting some higher recruits right now. Great. Can I see the results on the field? Well, the first 2 years have been a disaster. You lose to lesser teams. You struggle to beat lesser teams. You get embarrassed by the good teams. You can't win the Coastal. So you're not getting to the ACC championship game. You're nowhere near Clemson. Like, at least with Flo, I've watched them beat some of the better teams. I've watched them compete against some of the better teams. I've watched all his teams so far in the first 2 years get better from the first week to the last week. And I watched him almost make the playoffs in his second season. So I have all the hope that they're going to get better because that's been the track record so far. With Manny, I'm pretty close to giving up already because the first 2 years have been an utter disaster, an embarrassment. Yeah, I know we get all psyched up about the off seasons. The off seasons are fantastic. It seems like he answers every issue that they have, but then the season rolls around and then what? Right? I don't know. Somehow I left my cake out in the rain. I wish that Donna Summer song, and the cake is all screwed up. It's done. That's kind of, Manny Diaz. And that's the difference. It's hard for me to feel hopeful about Manny Diaz. It's incredibly easy for me to feel hopeful about Brian Flores. Two different things I've seen. So I don't know how any Dolphins fan has a negative attitude about the Miami Dolphins when the trend is this way. With the Canes, it's this. And when we're talking not up here, it's in the bottom of the graph. You're just trending sideways, doing the same shit that you were doing under Al Golden, under Randy Shannon, all that. There's no difference that we're watching. We all thought there would be. Well, not all of us, but at least I was part of the group that wanted Manny Diaz. And for me, this is the last season I give him a chance because the first two have been so embarrassing. If I would have seen progress, then I give him 5 years. And all right, but I've seen 2 crappy seasons. You give me another crappy season, then I know you're not anywhere. You're not the guy. And this year, 19 of 22 returning. You got your quarterback back? Yeah, dude, no. You better kick ass. See, I can understand negativity with the University of Miami football program. Right now, I don't get it at all with the Miami Dolphins. I can't. Can't understand it. Robert Hidalgo says, whose agenda, Big O? Salguero's, please tell us, didn't care for that site either. Too complicated. Oh, I don't know about whether he cared for that site or not. I'm just saying. I'm that Clay Travis guy. I know what he's all about. I'm not a fan. That's all. That's all I can tell you. You know, I got nothing. Armando's fantastic. I got nothing but love for Armando. I've known him for 30 years in this business. I wish him the best, but I would never work for that dude, ever. Would never work on that site. Chris Doherty says, sorry for the 3 comments. Phone glitchy, trying to listen while working. Almost no service. Fins up. Damn. Thank you, Chris. I appreciate you, my man. Alex Hennis says, Bucky Dent is the best fullback in Hialeah High history. Okay, I'll take your word for it. And then all the Arterburns are after. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, right? The Arterburns are like the Hialeah thoroughbred family. Salguero Romero says, thanks for your take on Salguero. Couldn't agree with you more. He always wanted to stick to sports, but he never took his own advice. Well, I mean, that's the site, right? That's the site where you can mix it in all the time. And I know the Travis Clay guy mixes it in all the time. He's got his agenda in there all the time. Let's see. Now they're doing Oklahoma drills in Detroit. Ha, ha, ha. Are they? Are they really doing that? I don't know. I have no idea. And if they are, it's crazy. Silly. Miami Kid J. Big O, if the Dolphins trade Jakeem, what do you think they get for him? These rumors are flying around. No, you guys are flying those rumors around. Why would they trade Jakeem? So I'm not even going to talk about it. R. Carrillo says, Big O, for all the Dolphins QBs we've had, have we had a proven QB from an elite system like Tua? Awesome work and hit those like buttons. Have we had a proven QB from an elite system like Tua? Well, all right. I mean, Pat White was, at that time, West Virginia was actually pretty good. Not that I ever bought Pat White, but I'm just saying, at that time, they were lighting up the college football. The kid from BYU, no. I'm trying to think of, no, not really. Not really. Now, remember, Alabama, this just happened with Jalen Hurts and Tua, and now Mac Jones. Before that, he was winning all his championships with Jags. They were guys that you wouldn't want on your team at all at the next level. And then he kind of turned the corner and then started to sign more dynamic guys, which, you know, with that talent, you're like, holy crap. Now he's going to get the elite quarterbacks. That's crazy. And that's what's been happening with Alabama. So while it's an elite program, they just turned the corner now, recently, in the last couple of years here, to actually better quarterbacks. So it's an interesting question you ask, but I wouldn't call Alabama this long-running thing, a quarterback U or something. You know what I'm saying? It's maybe it becomes that now because he'll continue to recruit those kind of core. Apparently, the new kid that they have now is apparently another one of those studs. So I get what you're saying, but it's like Alabama just recently became actually respectable at that position. They were very pedestrian at that position. They were winning with just guys that had no shot at even being a backup in the NFL practically. And that's where it's changed actually with Alabama. Tremolio says, for the next 10 years, Finns need to use top 3 picks no matter what round they land on, the O-line and D-line. Well, they've been already loading up on the O-line and D-line. Can we just wait to find, give these guys time to fail? Before we've already fired Greer and Tua has failed and now the O-line has completely failed and all that. Can we just allow people to actually have a good amount of time here to prove to us whether they can play or not? It's like these decisions are made like at the snap. Like you're already convinced that the line isn't going to happen. You're already convinced that Greer is not the guy. You're already convinced that Tua is not the guy. Some of you. It's weird. Ray says, Big O, it seems as though the Finns knew they needed more depth on the O-line months ago, trading for the Titans' former first-rounder and signing DJ Fluker. Yeah, well, they weren't convinced is what it is. And you can't have enough of those kind of guys. And if they become available and you're not loaded at that spot, which they really don't, they're really not loaded, then yeah, why not keep making a move for a guy? Again, I love the fact that these guys aren't going to stand pat and they're going to be aggressive and they're going to try to find a way to sign another player and find another player and find a diamond in the rough like they've done already, right? Seiler, Needham, Rowe, Beagle, right? These are guys that they found from other places and brought them here, and those guys have excelled here at different levels, but my point is they're excelling. Ogba is another guy. You needed pass rush. They signed him. They got a discounted rate for the 9 sacks last year, and now they have him again under contract. These are things that they've been doing left and right, but again, we got one guy that wants to fire Greer already. Drew Booth says Tevin Jenkins, rookie Chicago Bears left tackle, back surgery. Yikes. Yeah, and not only that, Justin Fields also is out of practice today. He got a little bit of a ding. Dougie Fresh says a macro question. Why is it that almost every team in the NFL has problems with their O-line? Are there few big men out there who can do it, or is it the injuries? What gives? College football, my man. College football has created some problems. You heard Manny Navarro yesterday say that linebackers now aren't doing a lot of tackling anymore because they're either dropping back in coverage. A lot of these high schools don't have 3 linebackers out there. They may have 1 or 2 with a whole bunch of defensive backs. So they're either in coverage or they're rushing at the quarterback. So you don't know how good they are against the run and those things because it's such a pass-happy type of league. Offensive linemen, it's a pass-happy league. It's not a ground and pound type game anymore. So you now can't measure guys for their run blocking. You get a better feel for pass blocking because there's a shitload of passing in college football. So then that creates a problem for you for offensive linemen. Quarterbacks, they're passing like crazy, right? And they're in shotgun a lot of times. You know how many quarterbacks have to now relearn how to snap the ball, get under center, and read the defense as they're dropping back instead of standing there and looking at the defense and then getting the snap, which is a lot easier. But grabbing the snap and dropping back, and you're kind of crouched down, and then you're extending yourself after that, and you've got to read everything developing, it's a little bit of a change, right? And I want you to do something. I want you to have a little fun, okay? I want you to stand above a table and then look around the room, right? Then I want you to squat down and put your hands under the table and now look around the room. No, Think about being a quarterback now. You're standing, you're 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". You're looking around. You now squat down. Now you got a linebacker standing in front of you, and then D linemen are about to rise in front of you. So as you snap, they're up. And then as you're elevating yourself, you then have to find the defense and the reaction. So that becomes a problem for the quarterback because it's something new that he hasn't seen because he's been in shotgun since high school to college. And now in the NFL, he's got to learn how to get under center and read the defense. Becomes another challenge, right? So all of these kind of things have become a problem for NFL teams to scout. So you don't know really who's the road grader. You don't really know who's the thumper on defense at linebacker. You really don't know if the quarterback can actually adjust to playing under center at times. And will that affect his game? These are things that are, it's nuts, but it's changed the game and then it's affected scouting. I mean, in the NBA, how many people play defense? You know, it's hard to find guys that are defenders. And then when you find a defender, he can't shoot. It's like baseball. You can't find a guy that can bunt. You can't, they don't steal anymore. They don't hit the opposite fields. I mean, the fundamentals are limited now, and the players have become limited now in different sports. And so they don't have the same kind of game they used to. And your linemen, you know, half the time they were run blocking, half the time they were pass blocking. Now it's 78, 85% of the time they're pass blocking. So they don't work on their running game. It becomes an issue. It's crazy stuff, man. But that's kind of the challenge that's been going on with the NFL scouts as they try to figure out guys at the next level. So it's the way it is, man. Let's see, what else do we have? That's your macro answer. Morning, O. Horn Dog says, I tapped out on Manny Diaz 2 seasons ago. Wow. He's terrible with preparation, terrible with in-game adjustments, and gets taken to the woodshed against the top-tier coaches. Horn Dog, I can't. I'd love to actually, have a discussion with you, argue with you about it, come up with some points I can counter. I can't counter anything, man. You're on target. Chester Rockwell says MacArthur's Park. That's right, baby. It's melting. Yes. Call of Duty says trade Jaheim because he has value to be traded. Okay, I don't know who Jaheim is. Not exactly sure who Jaheim is. You got to know the guy's name first, at least, before you trade him. What are you, that former Marlins manager that won a World Series and didn't know the players' names? Chad Henne from Michigan. Oh, that's a good one too, Extreme. They did get a quarterback from a big-time school in Michigan. That's actually a really good one. I never, to this day, I'll never say that was a bad pick. It failed. Fine. But the guy threw for 10,000 yards, was a 4-year starter. He had an arm. You know what I'm saying? Good dude, by the way. It was a picked, like, whatever it was, 50, 53rd, 49th, or whatever the hell it was in the draft. He went exactly where he was supposed to go. It just didn't work out. That's fine. But it wasn't a reach or anything like that. And I don't mind. You tried for a quarterback. I don't mind if you don't have a quarterback, try for a quarterback every year. That's what these guys did. Tried for one with Rosen, and then they got 2 of the following year. And hopefully they stop looking for quarterbacks now. It's sad for me to say this, but it's a moral victory for our Canes if we lose by 2 touchdowns. But I'll be in the front row of the stadium cheering for the upset next month and double masked. LOL. Good for you. Smart to be double masked. Definitely. Big O, I feel like people are making a mountain out of a molehill with our O-line issues. I don't think we have an issue. What are your thoughts about the O-line? I think they're just young. They are young, but we don't know if we have an issue or not because they haven't developed yet. So at the moment, you have a little bit of an issue. because they've got to develop. But we don't know. That's the way I would go. I wouldn't say the O-line has arrived, and I wouldn't say the O-line's a failure. I would say, let's pump the brakes. Let's give these young men some time so we can actually assess. Like the guy that we can assess harshly right now, his name is Michael Dieter. It's his third year. He's moved around for a couple positions. They're giving him an opportunity to find a home at center. He's been a guard all his life. Now you got to just play with the ball in your hand. That's the guy that I'll be more critical of this season than anybody else because, okay, dude, it's 3 years now. But some of these cats in their first and second years, in the first year was a pandemic where you didn't even have an off season. This was actually your first off season. I'm going to pump the brakes. I'm going to give them a little time to figure it out. That's what I'm going to do. Done blown up says the trade for Little is to bring more competition on the O-line. The incumbents are slightly comfortable, and Flo is pushing them to step up this season. I pretty much opened up the show with where they rant just like that, done blown up, so I am with you there. I didn't say O-line failed. They have Patriots rotation. They won't re-sign O-line draft picks, keep drafting the lines for a rotation. Well, no, not really, because when the Patriots have guys, whether it's Solar, whether it's Woody, whether it's Mankins, whether there are certain guys they'll keep around for several years, and then they'll trade you. But if you're pretty good, they'll keep guys around. Now, will they keep them around for 15 years? No, but they'll keep you around 7, 8, 9, 10 years. If you can do the job. You seem to be very high on Van Ginkel. Is he a potential Pro Bowler in your eyes? Hells yeah. Have you watched that kid? He's around the damn football all the time. Yeah, I'm a big Van Ginkel guy. I'm a complete believer in Van Ginkel. Kid's a baller, man. I think he's a steal. He's become a steal in the 5th round, actually. Ray says, any credit for Grier on all the undrafted players he has found the last few years, and they are contributors on our team. Crickets on the Grier hater. I'm with you. Rich V is in. Thank you, Rich. Jeffrey's Corner says, Big O, you made a comment a while ago saying that Flores and Grier has to succeed because they're black. I agree, because people are quick to get rid of them before they're given a fair chance. Now, I didn't say they have to succeed because they're black. I said that they have to succeed for minorities. And that was my point, that every minority right now in the NFL has to be looking at Miami and rooting for the Dolphins to win and rooting for Chris Grier and Brian Flores to get it done, because nobody has a minority at GM, a minority at head coach, and by the way, a minority at quarterback. That trifecta does not exist. That does not happen in the NFL. So minorities have been given finally an opportunity of a lifetime. And if Chris Grier hits it and Flo does too, then all of a sudden it's a copycat league. Then more minorities will get the opportunities. The problem is not enough minorities are getting opportunities, and plenty of them played the game and are assistant coaches and scouts, and they want to climb the ladder like Chris Grier, but they sit there in organizations for years and years and years, and they never get an opportunity. Finally, somebody gave Chris Grier an opportunity. So if you're a minority, you want these guys to succeed, because the trickle-down effect is other minorities are going to get the opportunity that they deserve. And that's the problem, that there are plenty of minorities that deserve an opportunity and they're not getting it. That's why what's going on in Miami is historic, and it's really important for minorities to watch that succeed, because it will have a positive effect on everything else. And if it doesn't succeed, it will have a negative effect on everything else. So there's a domino effect to all of this for minorities, I truly believe. What else do we have here? Oh, Waddle is cooking at practice. Yeah, I mean, you kind of now you said that, Omar tweets out Waddle with a drop from Tua. Let's see. What else do we have here? Jakeem Grant, who came away limping on a kickoff return, has walked it off and put his helmet back on practicing. Good news. Dolphins already without wide receivers Parker Fuller, Wilson Ford, and Preston Williams, plus Hearns on the IR. After all those receivers that the Dolphins have, it's like there's not a lot of them left right now at this point in time, man. It's crazy. Foster with a drop from Brissett. Foster needs to make the roster. Tua with a coverage sack. No wide receiver getting open. Tua holds the ball too long. McKinney with a tackle in the backfield. But Bernardrick McKinney is going to be a monster in the running game, dude. Tua with a nice slant to Gesicki for a first down. Alan Poupar reports, for the record, the line, "Carry on, my wavered son," is not my line. It's just a great line that I say when he was let go by the Detroit Lions. I brought it back yesterday. Kudos to the person who came up with it. There you go. Mark Hollins tries to draw a penalty, but Red gives him, made him cause he pushed off to a deep ball that is incomplete. Eric Rowe with a nice breakup on a pass to Kyle Pitts. Tua with a coverage. Tua with a covers. He sacks in 11 on 11. Something broke down. Okay, I don't. And that's what Omar put there. That one was kind of a little broken up there. Cravon LeBlanc with a diving interception on 7-on-7s. It ricocheted off a receiver's hands. What else do we have here? So those are some of the things going on. Tua throws a 45-yard touchdown to Salvon Ahmed down the right sideline after Ahmed got behind the Atlanta defender. Malcolm Perry comes back with a nice high-pointing catch on a high throw by Tua. Nice to hear Malcolm Perry's name, man. Wow. It's nice. And Ahmed, man, another find by these guys. Ahmed looks like a nice little player, man. Almost simultaneously, Brissett threw a bullet down the middle to Kirk Merritt on a 7-on-7 period, and Nick Needham picked off Felipe Franks on the far field. Those are some of the things going on. Greg Little, by the way, is wearing number 75. He is at practice today. Good for him that he's there. He's had a lot of injuries. Hopefully the kid can overcome some of these injuries and stay on the field, and let's see if his talent, Tua throws the ball away. 92 pressured him. Waddle with the drop from Tua. There you go. Okay, I saw that already. Tua's weaponry today is Waddle, Hollins, and Foster. Reminds me of last year's wide receiver group at the end of the season, Omar Kelly says. So there you go. Those are some of the things going on in Dolphins camp. KJ says, LOL, the receiver room was deep. Now, none left. I know, right? It's crazy, man. Robert says, Big O, now that I'm about your age, I'd rather watch the Fins on TV than buying season tickets again. Is it the same for you? Well, I got to tell you something. Look, when I was a beat guy and I had to be there, I did my job and I had to go downstairs and get sound, right? Now that I'm not a beat guy and I've been a host for a long time, I don't go to games that much anymore. I'd rather watch them on TV. And I preferably, I'd rather watch them on TV at home because I sit there, I can take notes, I can rewind, all those kind of things. When we watch it at Sports Grill, I'm not sitting there with a DVR. So when I watch it at a sports bar, it's not even the same either, and I'm not hearing the audio. So I'd rather be home, actually, because I get more work done and everything. Heat games, too. You go to a Heat game, yeah, you can take some notes and all that, but I'd rather be home and watch the Heat game and rewind and do all that stuff. Plus, I can actually keep up with other games. So for my job, I actually am more productive watching it at home with multiple TVs and multiple channels and all that stuff going on. So for me, it's more productive to do that. Now, in today's world, it's also very limited access. You don't have access to the locker rooms anymore. So it's all Podium. Well, guess what? All that Podium stuff, it's on YouTube. It's live on whatever channel 433 or whatever. I can watch the same thing the media's watching. So I do the same thing there, except I get to watch the game better than the media does normally, because at home, you'll get to watch it nice and relaxed and the way you want. Let's see. Jimmy 10 says, my hope is seeing with my own eyes the fruit of your coaching. I don't know what that means. Have no idea. Cruz, the first Michigan QB Finns had drafted by Denver, Brian Griese. That's right. That's right. You are correct, sir. You are correct. They are not playing any of those vets receivers, or they do not want to get hurt, brother. No, I think they would play Preston Williams. I think they're bringing him along slowly. So there are certain guys. I think Will Fuller, if he was out there, I think they'd give him some reps. Devontae Parker is the one guy that they probably like, whatever, bro, let's just get him to the regular season. We know he's going to break down anyway, and he's going to have injuries. Devontae's the one guy they don't need, but I think they would like to play the other guys. Even Will Fuller, I know, is not available the first week, but I still think they would like to get him out there and get him acclimated with the quarterback and the offense and all of this stuff. Okay. All right. Remember, please smash the hell out of the like button. There's a whole bunch of you watching there. Please smash the like button. It's incredibly important. We got 179 right now. We're at 103. Come on, man. Let's push it to 200. Let's go. Let's push it to 200. So please smash that like button. It is incredibly important. It gets the algorithm going, and it gets the show out to more people. So if you're listening on the podcast, please smash the like button. If you're watching right now on YouTube, please smash the like button. Reach out to us anytime if you're listening to the podcast, and anytime you got a question, a comment, Big O Radio Show at yahoo.com, Twitter, Big O Show, YouTube. Help us get to 4,000, man. We're like 10 away or less. I don't know what it is. It says 399, so it could be 90, could be 94. But get us a couple extra subscribers. Let's get to 4,000, man. That would be good. And of course, Cash App or Venmo is another way you can contribute to the program. Make a donation. That's Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. All right, so we talked about the acquisition of Greg Little earlier on the program in the first half hour. Talked a little bit about the preseason with the Miami Dolphins. Also in practice today, Sam Eguavoen was placed on the COVID list. Brandon Jones, Jarvis Davis are not practicing. Neither is Vince Beagle in the walking boot. Igbenogany is out there, but he's in a red jersey, so he's got some kind of a ding, nick, injury, something. Hunter Long wearing a sizable brace now on his left knee. I think Omar described it like a RoboCop type of brace. So apparently it's bulky, in other words. No Isaiah Ford. They would play Isaiah Ford if he was active. Albert Wilson, they're not waiting for the regular season for that guy that said that, because he may not even make it to the regular season. He needs to be playing. Will Fuller, they'd like to play him. Now, Parker's the only guy. So that's what I would tell you. And Cethan Carter also is out. So there you go. And Greg Little wearing number 75. Those are some of the things that are happening. Omar says, I think the Falcons might be on double-digit sacks today. Wow. Safedine says, Jalen Waddle dives for a pass from Tua for a completion. Another set of oohs from the fans here in attendance. Okay. So apparently the D line for the Falcons continues to feast on the Miami Dolphins, and they're not as strong and powerful as the Bears are. They're a more smaller athletic group. So it becomes more of a challenge. And for the guys that aren't good with technique, like Austin and Solomon Kindley, they're going to struggle against stuff like this. They're almost better off facing the guy that's kind of a bull and wants to try to power through you because there's not a lot of movement there. You know, so it's going to be a mano-a-mano type of battle. Alex Hennis says, we need Irving spikes. There we go. The spikester. Double-digit sacks is a problem, says Angry Home. Yes, Angry Home, I would agree with you, sir. Definitely. Says I'm a new subscriber. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Appreciate you. Welcome aboard. Welcome to all of you out there. Thank you. Very kind. And I see the thumbs are picking up, the likes. So there you go. Let's pick it up, baby. Let's get it to 200. That's what we need. All right, let's do this. We've got hour number 4, I think. Yeah, pretty much coming up now. The 1 o'clock, the 12 o'clock hour. We're going to come back. We're going to take a break. We'll take your questions. I got some stuff that I want to get off my chest. Got a bunch of things that I want to talk about overall. I got Jimmy Johnson. I got something to say about Jimmy's latest thing. We'll get to that. I got a couple of football notes. Ooh, excuse me. I got a couple of football notes that I want to get into. I got some music stuff too. I mean, there's a bunch of things to talk about. So we are ready. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back for hour number 2 or hour number 3. Maybe number 4. Hour number 4 in the program. That's next.
For over 16 years, EJDconstruction.com has provided South Florida residents quality craftsmanship, accurate project management, and exceptional service. That's why EJDconstruction.com is an A-rated member of Angie's List and the Better Business Bureau. When you're looking for the right custom home builder for additions or home remodeling, please call my friend Eric at 305-433-4843. That's 305-433-4843 for EJDconstruction.com.
This is the Big O Show.
There's many ways to support our program, from subscribing and liking the show to visiting our terrific sponsors. Another way is using Cash App. If you would like to donate to the show and help us grow, download Cash App and search Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. We appreciate your support as we continue to build the best sports show on the planet for South Florida sports fans. Support the Big O Show by using Cash App and donate to Cash Big O Show. Thank you for your incredibly loyal support.
This is the Big O Show.
There's no need to drive around South Florida wasting valuable time looking for a new or certified pre-owned Acura. Go to the #1 volume sales dealership in the Southeast United States. Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. Purchase with pace and space in a dealership tailored to your needs. From home buying to providing that personal touch. Contact the 2020 Satisfaction Award winner Craig Zinn's Acura of Pembroke Pines. 888-776-5123. That's 888-776-5123. Or visit them at 15601 Pines Boulevard in Pembroke Pines.
This is the Big O Show.
Sports fans love a place with great food, cold drinks, and TVs everywhere. That's why sports fans love Sports Grill and their 7 amazing locations. Check out the Bird Road location at 11481 Southwest 40th Street in the back corner of the West Bird Shopping Center. Sports Grill is also now offering some great employment opportunities. All kinds of positions are now available, from kitchen to hosting. Call for more information at 305-485-8845. From wraps to salads to amazingly delicious specialty dishes, Sports Grill is the home to the legendary special grilled wings. Since 1987, Sports Grill, good food, good drink, and good friends.
This is the O Show. This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
Hello, how you all doing? Hope you all are doing well out there. We got to get Kyle Krabs on, by the way. I just noticed that Krabby did not check in with us. So I don't know what happened there. So we wait a minute. There we go. Okay. I got you now. All right. Anyway, we are ready to rock and roll here. Hour number 4. Hope you all are doing well on a beautiful Wednesday. It's a football day. It's a football day also, because we got Inter Miami also playing tonight, which is a beautiful thing. Okay. All right, I'm sorry. I'm talking to Kyle, going back and forth. I think it might be the bottom of the hour when we do it. We got the mix up in the audibles, as they say. Robert Hidalgo, thank you, sir, giving us a little love on the super chat. That is very nice of you, sir. Thank you. Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you out there giving us a little love, whether it's on the super chat, and of course, Cash App and Venmo is also the other way that you can donate to us, and we get the whole donation. It's Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show at Cash App or Venmo. You can send it in there. But Robert, thank you very much, my man. I appreciate you immensely. There you go. They need to try Eichenberg at left tackle now. DJ Lloyd, I talked about this actually. I don't think they're ready to do that yet because I think they want to give Austin Jackson the opportunity. But I did bring up the idea last week that you can put Eichenberg at left tackle and put Austin Jackson at right tackle. And because Eichenberg is not, comfortable playing on the right side, and I know Austin's a left guy too, but maybe Austin, because he's considered a really good athlete, he can make the transition over to right tackle, and then Eichenberg can be comfortable at left tackle. Maybe they can do that, but I think they're not going to do that yet because Austin Jackson wasn't terrible last year as a left tackle. He wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible, dude. He did all right. And I know he wasn't good this past week, but I think they want to give him a legitimate opportunity at trying to win the job and not quit on him after one preseason game. So I think that's kind of I'm pretty sure they've talked about it, and I'm pretty sure they're going to try to do different moves if things don't work out. And that's why they traded for Greg Little. Hey, man, you got to try to bring in competition, and you might be able to find a diamond in the rough. You might be able to look. This guy's Greg Little's had a ton of injuries, ankle injuries. He's had shoulder. He's had concussion. He's had all kinds of injuries in Carolina, dude. Foot, I think it is also. He's had all kinds of issues, and he has struggled. But he's only been there 2 years. And last year, the new coaching staff was kind of moving on without him as it is. So in a way, I could actually argue that, he already, he didn't get the opportunity that you really need, and that maybe he gets that opportunity here and you get yourself a steal for a 7th round pick. It's possible. It's possible. All right, checking in on the super chat from the city of progress, baby, El Rey de los Gringos in Hialeah, Lee Michael Morrison. Lee, Thank you for checking in. Miss Virgo is in. Miss Virgo, thank you for joining us. We got several ladies that check out the program. Thank you very much. And I could tell that the ladies are hardcore sports fans, right? Because there's no way any of them are checking me out for looks. So you know that they're all about the sports, right? Because not even my wife checks me out for my looks. Big O, have you seen the film on Little? Needs a little work. Maybe Flores and the coaches can turn him around. He needs to stay healthy, too. He's had a lot of injuries in a couple of years. So he needs to stay very healthy in order to get it done. We'll see. We'll see. All I know is that this was no gamble whatsoever for the Miami Dolphins. That's the best part about the Greg Little move, that there was nothing, no gamble at all. That's the beauty of it. So we will get Kyle Krabs in, by the way. Hopefully in a few minutes he will join us, and we will talk a little football with him, and we'll have some fun. And he'll join us here on the program, and we'll talk a little Dolphins as the Dolphins are practicing against the Atlanta Falcons. The 49ers, as you all know, released Josh Rosen. Jimmy Johnson. This was one story that I wanted to get into, because the whole thing with Jimmy, Jimmy, it's funny because with Jimmy, it's all about excuses. And you failed here in Miami with the Dolphins. I get it, man. You were terrific with the Canes, although you underachieved with the Canes, right? Let's be honest now. Let's be honest, right? Jimmy Johnson had no business losing the Fiesta Bowl. All he had to do was hand off to Alonzo Highsmith, but he kept allowing Vinny Testaverde to pass the ball and pass him right out of a championship by throwing 5 interceptions. And it was like, well, wait a minute. The dude choked the year before in the Sugar Bowl against Tennessee, and you're going to allow him to pass again? Jimmy lost that championship. Alonzo Highsmith was averaging 6 yards a carry against Penn State, because Penn State had 77 DBs back there, and yet Jimmy played right into their hands, and so did Vinny Testaverde, of course, because that was Vinny's thing. While he was incredibly gifted, he was also so Jimmy Johnson underachieved with the Dolphins. Then he got the break of a lifetime going to Dallas, and Mike Lynn gave him all those picks, and to Jimmy's credit, he picked the right players. But he had no salary cap, and he could keep all those guys. So he was able to build a dynasty there in those days because there was no cap. Now he goes to Miami. There's a cap in place. And, I get kind of tired of all this shit with Jimmy because, dude, you wanted to trade Marino, and then you picked the wrong quarterback. You went with Culpepper over Breeze. And please don't tell me that the doctors. You're the boss, bro. You're the boss. If you really wanted him, no, I'm going to take the chance on him. Why didn't you? Don't blame the doctors. And so now the latest story with Jimmy is that he almost traded for Peyton Manning. He had to give up his whole draft, and he could have acquired Peyton Manning. Well, why didn't you, man? Why didn't you? So this is all about what if. What if? Oh, I didn't. The doctors didn't let me pick the right quarterback. I would have picked Drew Brees. Well, dude, you're in charge. You could have taken Drew Brees. You didn't. So everything's about what could have been. I could have had Peyton. I could have had Drew Brees. You could have given it to Alonzo Highsmith. You see what I'm saying? And I was telling you a little while ago in the first half hour of the show, that Dolphin fan yesterday on Twitter who was silly, pointing out that after Rosen gets cut, oh, well, Greer really screwed up there. And I went after the guy like, well, wait a minute, he got Tua now. So what do you want? So you're now going to pick on a team that's aggressively going after quarterbacks For years, they weren't aggressive going after quarterbacks. And that's why you were in a rut. So now they go after quarterbacks and you're going to slam them? And he might have hit on Tua. So if he hits on Tua, that means the guy picked 2 quarterbacks and he hit on one. That's a 500 average there. That's pretty awesome. You see what I'm saying? So it's weird how Jimmy, it's all about excuses with him. And it shows you that you're not going to make all the right decisions. And he made all the right decisions in Dallas. And it worked out for him. But he didn't make all the right decisions in Miami. At Oklahoma State, he wasn't taking them anywhere special. You're not going to make all the right decisions all the time. You're not going to be great everywhere you go. And Jimmy wasn't special at Oklahoma. He wasn't special at times for the University of Miami. Because he while he has a championship, he also owns the worst loss ever in a bowl game because you dropped a national championship. And then all I got to hear with the Dolphins that you were a failure is that, oh, I could have had that quarterback and I could have had this quarterback. And then the one you did have in Dan Marino, you know what you did? You took away Kirby. You took away Byers. You took away Irving Fryer. Well, then, dude, what do you expect from your offense then? If you're going to take away all the weapons from the damn quarterback, then how do you expect to actually score points? So you were going to acquire Peyton Manning but not give him any weapons? Were you going to acquire Drew Brees and not give him any weapons? You know, I get it that there's this love affair with him and all that stuff, but let's not make it all sound like it's perfect. Because it's not. It's just not. He underachieved in a lot of places. The one place where he overachieved, it was Dallas. Everything went his way. To his credit. But let's not make it sound like he was Hall of Fame everywhere else. Yeah, he won a championship with the U, but they were loaded. You should have won a couple. How about that Maryland loss? I mean, let's just, I get tired of the excuses. I get tired of, sometimes I have to say, I have to say it. I kind of get tired of, let's just, I don't know, the word I guess I got to use, that he's overrated at times. I think people overrate him at times. I really do. Because when you're great everywhere. And he wasn't. And I'm tired of the excuses. Oh, I could have traded for Peyton Manning. I could have had Drew Brees. But instead, I was forced to keep Marino. And then what am I going to do? Destroy the offense. Wow, boy, you really handled everything. You failed to trade for Manning. You failed to pick the right quarterback. And the guy you kept, you screwed. And then when you lost 62-7 to final game of your Dolphin career, you stuck your tail between your legs and like a coward, you walked out and never answered any questions for the media. And then all I got to hear for years after is your Drew. It's like listening to Saban, the same thing. Same thing. I could have had Drew Brees. Jimmy Johnson, I could have had Peyton Manning. I could have traded Dan Marino. I mean, I'm tired of excuses from Saban. I'm tired of excuses from Jimmy. I'm just tired of all these stinking excuses that go on with all these guys. Saban and Jimmy. You failed, dude. You failed. That's it. You could have had this guy. Oh, you could have traded for Peyton Manning. I would have had to give up my entire draft. Well, why didn't you do it? Saban, oh, I could have had Drew Brees. Well, why didn't you do it? I'm tired of all these excuses. And then when I look at Jimmy, look at his track record, man. That Penn State loss may be the biggest loss ever in the history of the University of Miami football program. They handed you a championship, and you handed it back to Paterno. Crazy stuff, man. Crazy stuff. All right. let's get to it. Let's talk a little Miami Dolphins. We promised you that Kyle Krabs will be kind enough to join us now to talk a little Fins. He is ready to go. Kyle, how you doing, my man? How you
See you, Big O.
Good to see you, my friend. I see the whole. Now wait a minute. Where's the old logo, bro? You need the real logo.
Hold on. I wouldn't leave you out to dry. I got it.
There we go.
So I got walls. So I got retro wall is back here behind the computer, and then back here's the modern logo. So I got, depending on what mood I wake up in, I could just turn around and do my laptop and record on this one, and I get the retro pack.
Okay, I got it. All right, good stuff. And remember, you can follow him at Grinding the Tape. And of course, he's the director of scouting for the Draft Network, the lead editor for the Dolphins Wire, and host of the Locked On Fins podcast. And he is Kyle Krabs, kind enough to join us now on the program. First of all, before we get to what's happening on the field, although he is on the field right now, your thoughts on the Greg Little trade?
Yeah, he makes a lot of sense when you take into consideration the kinds of offensive linemen that Miami has gravitated towards. These really heavy, explosive lower body movement types, but not necessarily quick twitch guys. And I think that's something you've seen with Greg Little going all the way back to Ole Miss when he was really raw. He kind of falls in line with like the Austin Jackson types, where you got to get a lot of technical stuff right with him, but he has all the uncoachables. And I think the question for Miami with all these offensive linemen they're bringing in now is, okay, who's going to have the coaching stick? Because at some point it can't just be potential anymore, right? You have to have guys that really are proficient in their fundamentals and technique, which is what made Liam Eichenberg an interesting deviation from some of those tendencies. He's not quite as big. He is a little bit more technically polished, but he definitely fits the mold of what I would call a Miami Dolphins offensive lineman.
So you're telling me that they've got to go out. I mean, he came from New England, so should he go get Scarnecchia or whatever so he can teach him the line? I mean, because that guy was obviously awesome. And I guess what you're saying is there, whether it's Solomon Kinley, whether it's Greg Little, whether it's Austin Jackson, they need a real technician to teach these guys hand placement, all that kind of stuff, footwork, all that kind of stuff, to become real technicians out there. Because what you're saying is physically they have all the tools to be the linemen, but technically is where they're really lacking.
Yeah, and I think that there's no greater manifestation of that than Austin Jackson in the preseason game on Saturday against Chicago, which he very clearly has the movement skills to hit his landmarks. It's when you get there, are your hands tied to your feet? Are you striking with your feet in the ground so you can have power? Are your hands late? Are you carrying your hands too low? Like all those little things that it's just, you got to put it all together. So I understand the thought process of let's go out and get guys that have all the things you can't possibly coach. But at some point, and Miami, the offensive line coach has been one of the sore spots beyond just the Brian Flores era, right? I mean, you think about the offensive line and the coaches that they've had in here trying to get this group to have stability for a really long time. And it's been pretty hit or miss aside of the 2016 season when I think they had their best five for like 5 or 6 games and that was it. And then there was injuries that kind of forced musical chairs there. So that's definitely the next step. I think they have all the raw clay that you could possibly want to mold, but at some point that clay's got to set. Otherwise you got to go out and you got to buy the finished product from somebody else.
Kyle Krabs joining us. Make sure you follow him on Twitter. He's a must follow at Grinding the Tape. What did you like from the offensive line this past week?
I thought Robert Hunt looked as advertised on the inside. I think from a pass protection perspective, the inside of the pocket was fairly sturdy, which you like for a quarterback in Tua who's right around 6 foot. His ability to see down the field, he can't have long arms like up extended in his face inside the pocket, right? And we saw him move around his spot a little bit. I thought Michael Dieter did okay. I definitely think he's pretty solid. He's pretty smooth. He's not going to wow you in a lot of instances, but I think that interior pairing of Dieter and Hunt was the bright spot for me on the offensive line.
Yeah, me too. And I thought Kinley wasn't bad either. I thought he actually did all right too. And I mean, they wanted to see some improvement from him there. I think it kind of, the whole Eichenberg thing might have lit a little fire under him.
Yeah, I definitely think that's that's the best case scenario for Miami is that Kinley removes the doubt there for them, right? Because at the very least, B gap to B gap, you're going to have really big bodies that are hard to move. And as long as they are mentally on the same page as far as, okay, we got to step this direction, we're responsible for these two. Linebacker comes, I'm disengaging and picking him up. As long as from an assignment perspective, those three are on the same page, I think physically it's going to achieve a lot of what we talked about a little bit as far as gap and pocket integrity directly in front of Tua's face.
Tua's play. What'd you think of Tua's play?
If his back foot would have hit on that red zone interception and the ball would have came out right away, we'd be glowing. It'd be glowing reviews about the way Tua played from top to bottom, right?
Right. Yeah.
There was a drop and a throwaway, and then the interception on the last pass attempt that he had on the day. That I don't know what the thought process was as far as coming back to it late, but I did think it was interesting that Coach Flores, after the game, they asked him about it, and usually Coach Flores says, "Well, we got to review the tape and look at it, and so on and so forth." No, not this. It was literally, he knows what he should have done there. It's an easily correctable mistake. We'll fix it going forward. So I don't know if he got cute. I don't know if he saw something pre-snap and thought he was going to go to Waddle in the slot or anything like that. But
he had one-on-one on that side. So I think, and I was having a little fun with it because obviously I'm old. I could have some fun with this. Marino, back in the day, if you're Adam Shaheen and you drop that pass, he's not coming back to your ass. And so there was a part of me is like, yeah, he's open, but dude, he dropped that last one. Let me go. Oh, okay. And so it was one of those where, let me check real quick. Oh no, too late. And it closed in on him. I doubt he was thinking that, by the way. He's not like Marino in that sense. Marino would have just F you to Adam
cold-blooded.
Shaheen. Yeah, he wouldn't even looked his way. But I think he got a little cute, and he thought he was going to have enough time to go back to the right and back to the left and hit him, and that wasn't the case, and he paid the price for it. I kind of think that's what it was, because he did have one-on-one on the right side, so I think he wanted to see what the numbers were there instead of threading something in between the two guys. But as you know, if you roll the tape back, he was wide open between those two guys down the hash. It would have been an easy throw for him to make it a touchdown. He made it much harder for himself, unfortunately.
Well, and I think that comes back to Tua and his profile as a quarterback. And you think about some of these quarterbacks that have the opportunity to be right even when they're wrong or their process is wrong, and they're the guys that the ball really explodes out of their hand. And Tua's got better velocity on the ball this year than he did last year, but at the same time, even coming out of Alabama, he had plenty of ability to throw it down the field, but was with a lot of touch. There was some arc and loft on the ball. He's not a guy who's going to throw 20-yard throws and ropes, right? So that was a high red zone play.
Yeah.
You got to have the timing, and that's where the comparisons come with, like, a lot of people wanted to comp him to Drew Brees before the draft. Drew Brees won with timing. He didn't win with an explosive arm that he can be a half second late and still explode and hammer that ball in there. Tua's never going to win that way. And that's what he tried to do on that play. And obviously he didn't have the juice to hit it home.
Yeah, exactly. And whether it's Montana, whether it's Brees, whether it's Bob Greasy, there's been guys throughout the history of the NFL that had plenty of success. And I just named you 3 Hall of Famers, and none of them possessed a gun. So yep. It's for those that, because we have these arm queens out there. We have the size queens too. If you're not 6'5", then you can't be the quarterback. And then you tell them, well, what about Jamarcus Russell? If you don't have a cannon, you can't be the guy. Well, what about Ryan Leaf? The league is littered with guys that were big strappers with amazing arms, and they just couldn't get it done when it was all said and done. You can win plenty in this league with what Tua has.
No question.
That's the part that there's this enormous misconception out there, and there are slew of examples. Chad Pennington was a damn good quarterback. The injuries mounted on him, and his weak arm became even weaker, and that became a problem for him, on the back end. But that's a guy that was a really good quarterback early in his career, and he never had a gun either. You know what I mean? It's here, man. It's here. And it's not only here. it's also, and I'm sure you can back me up on this, there's a gift to anticipation, ball placement, accuracy. Those things most guys cannot do. It's a struggle for guys to throw to spots where the guy isn't at yet, but he's going to be there.
Yeah.
That's a gift that so many what he did in that Arizona game last year, that showed me right there. That's it, dude. He's got it.
That little comeback route that he hit on third down inside their own 20 on Patrick Peterson of all guys, that was one of the throws that was like, wow. When he released that, the receiver still had 2 steps to even get to the top of the route, let alone turn around and come back down the stem for the ball. So absolutely, the anticipation, the accuracy, those were things with Tua, along with his footwork and ability to move within the pocket. Those were his shining qualities. And obviously, you look at his ball handling and the RPO type stuff, which we probably won't see too much of this preseason. I think they'll probably keep the offense pretty vanilla in general. But you have nothing to gain. Like if it's a difference of, okay, we're gonna throw the glance slant on an RPO and score a touchdown in week 1 of the preseason, but then we put it on tape, just lose the game, right? Just go ahead and run the ball down inside the 5 into the back of your offensive lineman 3 straight times and kick the field goal. It's okay. Right. That's part of the evaluation process. And you want to see that offensive line if they have the ability to churn that out anyway.
Yes. Yeah. I believe they would have passed in that same situation.
No question.
He would have run one of them, but he would have given the other two to Tua because that's what got you there was the passing game. Plus, you weren't running at all up until that point or the entire game after that. You just weren't pushing anybody, off the ball. So you and I agree, Tua was terrific. The one mistake, which again, I've told people yesterday, if he was Jameis Winston, then I'm concerned because I don't know if you're going to learn from that moment. You know what I mean? If you're Drew Lock, he will be a little irresponsible. Although I hear he's actually doing better this year. It looks like the competition with Teddy's kind of close, but he might be winning it. But Drew Lock's another one of those guys that will take those kind of risky chances. And I don't know if you agree with me, Kyle, but a lot of people were like last year, oh, I want him to be aggressive. I want him to take chances. His IQ does not allow him to do those things if he's comfortable with what's going on with the players, the system, all of those kind of things. If he doesn't have that, that's why we saw an aggressive guy this past week, because he was comfortable.
Right. And it comes back to some of his comments about how much of a mastery he had of how much of the playbook last year. But then also put yourself in the shoes of being Tua, and he's coming back off of the injury, and he's inserted midseason into a controversial quarterback change in general for a team that's pushing for the postseason. Like, are you really going to want to go out there and throw a back-breaking pick up 4 points in the second half of a game and set the other team up on a short field and lose a game that might potentially keep you out of the playoffs? Like, up until the game against Buffalo, his ball security was really solid. He obviously was stripped by Aaron Donald on a sack on his first possession as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Welcome to the freaking league. And then he had an underthrow to Jakeem Grant down the field for one of his interceptions. But generally speaking, the ball security was really, really strong until the end of the year, where they had to be aggressive and they had to push because they laid a total egg on both sides of the ball in that game against Buffalo.
Kyle, where do you land on Jakeem Grant? Because I seem to be fighting with listeners every day because we got so many of them, and my boy Omar Kelly, they're dying to trade him away. And I'm sitting there going, how do you trade one of the best 3 returners in the NFL? Plus, they tell me, oh, no, you could just use Jalen Waddle. Well, he's coming off a foot injury. I don't want him returning and a full-time receiver off a foot injury. Hell, he was already limping. What the hell? Why would I want to do that? Where do you stand on Jakeem? Are you one of these guys, too, that's dying to get rid of him? Or do you have any appreciation for what he brings to the table?
If you would have asked me if you were to ask me in January, I would have said it's time to go. We've seen enough. But he's had a nice camp. And at the same time, I think the Dolphins' salary cap situation is at a point where they shouldn't feel pressure to have to manufacture cap space. right? And that was one of the big selling points for getting rid of Jakeem is he had, I think, almost $3 million in cap savings were there to be had if you wanted it. So this is the have your cake and eat it too scenario where they've brought in this massive influx of other receivers. Obviously, they have to be healthy, but I think if we were playing games for keeps, you'd probably see at least half of these guys out there given to go on Sundays anyway. But Grant does have value for the speed that he brings to the field. You're protecting Jalen Waddle from being exposed to too much of the elements as a returner, which is where he was hurt against Tennessee last year in the opening kickoff of the 5th game of the season for Alabama last year. But that speed has value, and I think as Miami is kind of sorting through what their wide receiver room looks like, I think it's going to break down in a way in which you're going to feel comfortable with having presumably 7 and 1 or 2 of those guys being guys that are predominantly special teams guys, which is what Jakeem Grant would be. Right. I'm totally fine with keeping him in.
Hollins or Foster are going to be the other guy that you're talking about.
Right. And Hollins has had a great camp thus far, as far as really showing some rapport with Tua Tagovailoa as well. So obviously he was kind of pushed into a receiving role last year as Devontae Parker struggled with the hamstring down the stretch. And it was pretty hit or miss. He obviously had a couple of drops in key instances down the field, but he's shown himself well. But if he's your wide receiver 6 and he's your primary gunner and your stud gunner on the kickoff teams, and he's the big body backup, then you're fine and you're in great shape. And then, you can have the same thing with Jakeem Grant behind Jalen Waddle / Albert Wilson as a speedy option with run after catch threat. So yeah, I think the only motivation at this point to get rid of him is if you need the cap for something else. And I don't think they're going to be in that situation. But I would put him in the top 7 right now. As long as you're keeping 7, I think Grant is in.
Yeah, for me, he's in my top 6. For me, I think he's I think Hardman and Tyreek Hill is what I think, dude. Where you're using Jakeem as your main returner, but if you want a little juice every once in a while, that's what Kansas City does. Oh, you're down by 7. It's late in the 4th quarter. We need a score. Let's bring in Tyreek Hill. All right, let's bring in Jalen Waddle, and let's give him the opportunity because he's been running routes all day. But, okay, we can give him this return or 2. I don't want to use Jalen Waddle, full-time player, as a receiver. And as you know, a slot guy plays a hell of a lot in this league. And the Dolphins are going to have him out there 100% of the time anyway. How do you rest that kind of speed? You cannot.
Right.
And so I'd rather use him the way Kansas City uses Hardman and Tyreek Hill.
I think what's really exciting to kind of double down on what you said there is and the Dolphins didn't do a lot of 10 personnel last year where they got 1 running back on the field and 4 wide receivers. But if they wanted to do that this year and you got Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Albert Wilson, and Jakeem Grant as your 4 wide receivers on the field, like, put your helmet on, man. That's the straight up F1 race with the speed that you've got on the field with those 4 guys. So how do you counter that as a defense? Well, you're automatically going to dictate too high safety coverage because they're going to be petrified of what you can run right by them. And everybody's going to play soft and they're going to try and play it in front of you. And any one of those guys can take it and you blink and you miss it. They're going to break a pursuit angle and then you're off to the races. So there's some exciting potential there. And then you look at what they have in the tight end room and the other way. And this is exactly what Brian Flores wants. On a week-to-week basis, if we want to come out in 3 tight end sets, we run it right at you and challenge you physically, we can do that. If we want to spread you out and go empty sets left and right, we can do that too. So I think it all kind of feeds into, he talks about being multiple and being flexible and week to week. This is the embodiment of that with how you're seeing this roster has been constructed to this point in time.
Yeah, I'm with you there. That's the one thing that I do love is the flexibility, and they demand that from their players too. That's why guys like Albert Wilson and Allen Hurns, as good as a camp as Albert Wilson was having, if he wasn't a starter, I don't think he ends up on the team. I think he ends up traded, actually, when it's all said and done. Hurns, I didn't think even had a shot. No. And why? Because in the end, they don't help you on special teams, those guys. They're one-dimensional. And
then you can throw Preston Williams in that bucket too.
Yeah, but Preston is young and has potential to be a star receiver, in other words, whereas Wilson's not going to be a star receiver and Hurns is a possession guy as it is. I think with Preston, they're still banking on the potential that the kid has because he has shown it to us. Kyle, that he can be a number one. I mean, X said it the first year that he was here. It's like, dude, that guy's got talent to be a number one. And listen, scouts told me, he just had the off the field issues. This guy should have been a high pick as it is.
Yeah, he didn't help himself he had like a really underperform versus what his film showed, like pro day with testing numbers too. Like it was really bad. So that was like the final nail in the coffin for him from a pre-draft process. But it'll be interesting to see how he kind of fits into the depth chart if they try and PUP him to start the year, or if they put him on the 53 and then put him on IR and then he's out 3 weeks and you can bring him back whenever you want. They'll have some options for what they do there, but ultimately it'll probably have to be he makes the 53. They'll expose somebody else to waivers and then they'll stash him after that.
And by the way, I love the fact that I hope he does end up on PUP. And what I mean by that, so Dolph fans don't freak out, I think I'm wishing the worst on the kid. I blame the Dolphins for last year's injury. I thought they actually brought him back too soon from that knee injury. Plus, the kid probably wanted to get back because he's dying to prove himself and stick to the league and all that stuff. And I think they hurried him back, and he ended up getting injured again. I love the fact that they're like, yeah, we're slow walking this thing this time around.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to wait till give the kid an opportunity to get to 100% so he can go out there and show us what he was showing us in the early part of that first year.
Do you get the sense, because that's how I feel, I look at some of the injury management that they have almost exclusively across the board with a lot of guys. And it feels like there's a lot of load management awareness in camp this year with they don't want to stress guys. There's some guys that play half a practice and then they're off. There's guys that get routine off days.
Jalen Phillips now.
So I applaud Miami for that. I know everybody wants to push the panic button and say, man, these wide receivers aren't practicing. Jalen Phillips hasn't been practicing. But at the same time, as long as they're getting mental reps and they're okay for walkthroughs, and it's like, if they're not practicing the week of the game against New England, now I'm hitting the panic button. I'm not hitting the panic button now. We still got almost a month until the start of the season.
Right. Yeah. Because some people are like, hey, how about the Devontae Parker? I'm like, you know what, dude? I don't need to see Devontae Parker the entire preseason. As I'm with you, as long as he's ready to practice the week against New England, you don't need. What more do you need to see from Devontae Parker? What you need is not to put him on field because you risk more injuries. Just let him get to the regular season because he can't play an entire regular season as it is. So just get him there. But I'm with you. I think you're on to something. That they're well aware of what's going on with the injuries. Plus, they were kind of trampled with the injury bug last year. So they look, hell, dude, at the beginning of this, we were like, hey, they got 87 receivers. Now they're down to 7 receivers.
Right.
They've lost 80 in the process. It's like, holy crap. Today, there's only 4 guys that Tua has right now to play this week against Atlanta because he's missing a whole bunch of guys. Thank the Lord they signed a whole bunch of receivers.
Yeah. And so I think I look at that. I appreciate that perspective from Miami. And I think this kind of gives you a chance to see, at least with Devontae Parker too, he was partaking in the throwing session with Tua all summer. If there was one guy that you were like, man, like I wish he was out there, it'd probably be Will Fuller, right? Because he came to Miami later in the process. He was finishing some training and rehab up in Houston. So he came down later. That one stings a little bit, but Tua was pretty assertive in getting a lot of these guys together. He was throwing to Jakeem. He was throwing to Devontae. He was throwing to the bottom of the roster guys. So he's had a lot of time on their own. And with you going back to what we were talking about with throwing with anticipation and timing and taking ownership of that kind of stuff, those extra reps in the summer are going to be really valuable for that. So Devontae, he got a lot of that work in over the summer. So I'm okay with it so long as he's ready to go for the top of the season.
Question for you, and of course, Kyle Crabbs joining us here. Follow him on Twitter at Grinding the Tape. He is the director of scouting for the Draft Network. Are you buying Javon Holland? Because it looks like, I loved him before the draft. I love that they took him, and I'm all in right now watching him, and it looks like they found the dude to play that position. Where are you at right now? I know it's early in the process, but I love what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting that they went out of their way to get him 30-something snaps against Chicago. I think he played into the fourth quarter in that game, getting him a lot of opportunities to work on the communication. Anytime you're asked about the Dolphins secondary, they talk about communication and all the calls and making sure everybody's on the same page. And I think that's the big test now for over the course of the next couple of weeks is making sure he's comfortable with all of the checks and communication that he's going to be responsible for as the free safety. But as far as just football instincts and playmaking ability and his tackling skills, like he's going to be a player for Brian Flores. And I really think he's only going to get better as he masters the calls at free safety. And then you open him up to start playing on the second level in down and distance situations, or if you want to roll him down in the slot and let him play some man-to-man, which he did for a little over half of his snaps at Oregon in 2019, the last year that he played. So 18, he was free high safety. 19, he stepped down and played a lot of nickel and some man-to-man stuff. So the versatility is only going to continue to grow with him as he gets more comfortable with taking ownership effectively at the back seven on defense.
What are you looking for this week against the Falcons?
Obviously the offensive line, making sure that the guys who underwhelmed, they bounce back. For Tua, continued showing of comfort and ability to read the entire field and his mobility when he does need to extend plays, but keeping his eye to downfield. He had one of the reps in which Austin Jackson kind of got thrown back into his lap and he stepped up and ended up dumping the ball underneath. I mean, he stepped through. It was like watching a guy do drills with the bags on the ground where he steps up over one, he slides back this way. The eyes never went down. So I want to continue to see that kind of presence from Tua. And then defensively, just continue to dictate the line of scrimmage. I thought the first and second team defensive lines did a wonderful job against Chicago. And obviously their offensive line was really beat up. But that only set the expectation higher. And before Justin Fields came into the game and led that 2-minute drill there with the final minute before half, they had like 30 yards of offense in the first half. So I want to continue to see defensively dictate the line of scrimmage, because I think they got a two deep there on the defensive line that a lot of teams would be enviable about for what they can do to really own the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, all that awareness by Tua, his eyes were up, a guy's rolling into his legs, or guys are rushing and he's dodging one guy and another while he's still looking on the his pocket awareness is amazing. Not as good as Ryan Tannehill's, but it was really good, right?
Yeah, that's we can't put him in that bucket just yet, but totally different sense of like Tua's got the sixth sense as it pertains to feeling that first arriving pass rush.
Yeah, no, Ryan would have given up 7 sacks.
He'd walk right back into it. He'd lean into it.
Yeah, it's crazy stuff. All right, what are you working at the Draft Network so Dolphins can check you out, my man?
Yeah, next week we're dropping our top 100 prospects for the 2022 draft cycle. We've had our group of scouts that have been watching college prospects all summer, and then we did a cross-check period. So we've got that coming out next week. One of our more popular sites, our features on the site, is our mock draft simulator. That'll be updated next week as well to kind of mark the start of the 2021 college football season. So some good stuff there, and then you'll get some Dolphin-specific content for me there in addition to my other places for Dolphins.
So just out of curiosity, maybe one UM player made that top 100? Bubba Bolden, maybe? I don't know. Who made it? Maybe?
We like Bubba Bolden. I think he was just on the outside looking in.
Just on the outside?
Zion Nelson made the list. Yep.
Okay.
Very toolsy. He reminds me a little bit of Austin Jackson, of all people, at USC, where it's the tools, and now it's how do you continue to stack it together. So Zion's our top-rated Hurricane. Brentley Weissman, one of our scouts who worked for the Chargers for a few years, he also really likes Cameron Harris. So a couple guys get a little bit of love.
I just don't know if he is like at the next level. I almost think like he's a backup at the next level. That's my only thing with Cameron Harris.
He fits well in a stable of backs at this point. Now, if he comes out and he blows up this year, then we can revisit that conversation. But Brentley really saw some physical tools that he liked. But Brentley's he kind of put his flag in the ground on that one. Will Mallory 99th I'll put the spoiler out there. He's 99th in the top 100, so he did make the cut.
Yeah, now that I think about it, that would be the other guy that I would pick to maybe make the top 100. All right. Good stuff there. Kyle Krabs, Grinding the Tape is the Twitter handle. Make sure you follow him there. Kyle, as always, man, thank you for taking some time, man. We really appreciate it.
It was good being on with you and catching up, Big O. I hope you're well.
Thank you, my brother. You're a stud. You be good. There you go. The great Kyle Krabs, baby. Thank you to Kyle. Excellent stuff there. All right. Dougie Fresh says, for Kyle, what is your football story as a player? I know he played. You could look up his bio. I'm not exactly sure when, but yeah, he did. Let's see. What do we have here? It aggravates me the way they have built up Fields without mentioning it was against the second and third teamers' worst defense. It's preseason. It's a 24-hour news cycle. They got to fill it up with all kinds of stuff. And in a month from now, when the kid struggles, they'll say he sucks and he was a bust. That's just the way it goes. And then they'll give up on him without even giving him a couple seasons. If it's not overhyped, then you're, completely ripped. The whole Jimmy Johnson stuff makes no sense. Dave Wanster was the head coach when Breeze was at Purdue. Coach. Oh, I'm sorry. I kind of brain farted. What I meant was the BS from Saban and the BS from Jimmy. Hey, I could have had Breeze. I could have had Peyton Manning. What was the other thing that was talked about? Oh, I could have traded Marino, and I'm just tired of excuses. You failed, dude. You failed. That's all. Jimmy came out and said, "Oh, we could have been special." You weren't special. And Saban, same crap. You come out, I could have had Breeze. I'm tired of it, bro. Just be man up, bro. Man up and just say that I failed. I didn't come through for the Dolphin. Don't blame it on, I could have traded for Peyton Manning. Like, that's not going to change anything you did with the Miami Dolphins, Jimmy. You were a failure. You did a nice job. You found Taylor and Zach and Sam and Pat, and we thank you for that. No doubt. But you destroyed an offense. You wanted a quarterback, but you destroyed an offense. And then Saban, the same thing. Dude, you weren't built for the NFL. You're a tyrant. You can't run an NFL team like a tyrant because those guys make a lot of money. And they're not going to take your crap. They're grown-ass men. Some of them are making as much money or more than you in those days. So that's, that's what I meant by, and I'm sorry if I threw in the Breeze and the Manning thing, and I did not mention Saban, which I think I did not, and I should have. So that was just the whole thing. And then I wanted to bring up the Jimmy stuff with the University of Miami, which he underachieved there. I know he won a championship. Should have won more. You underachieved. That's all. So I'm just tired of both these guys with their excuses. Just take responsibility. Better yet, don't even talk about it anymore. That's all. Jimmy, live with your history at the at the University of Miami and Dallas. Don't talk about the Dolphins anymore. Saban, bro, live your life over there in Alabama. Talk about your LSU championship if you want. Don't talk about the Dolphins. Don't make excuses. You failed. It's your fault. Jimmy, it's your fault. Nobody else's. Even with the University of Miami, Jimmy, your fault. You could have kept handing it off to Alonzo Highsmith. You allowed Vinny Testaverde to piss away the game. And he gave you an incredible example of choking the year before against Tennessee in the Sugar Bowl. And yet you still allowed him to go out and throw 5 interceptions against Penn State. Was it 5 against Penn State, 4 against Tennessee? I mean, Vinny Testaverde threw 9 interceptions in the 2 biggest games of his career. So that to me is why I'm sorry if I mixed it up and I did not mention Saban and the whole thing, but that was kind of my whole thing about excuses. I'm just freaking tired of it, man. I'm tired of hearing from Jimmy, and I'm tired of hearing from Saban. Just tired of it, bro. That's it. Which championship loss hurts you more, Penn State or Ohio State? No, Penn State. Ohio State was a mistake by the referee. You can't control that. Incompetence by a referee is incompetence, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe he hated the University of Miami and he did it on purpose, whatever. But you can't control that. I can't control that. Nobody can control that. Could Jimmy Johnson have controlled that Penn State game? Yeah. Yeah. By handing off to Alonzo Highsmith. That's all he had to do all day long. All day long, just hand it off. Alonzo Highsmith would have ended up with 350 yards and several touchdowns. They had everybody in the backfield, and Jimmy just played right into their hands. So for me, Jimmy pissed away that championship. Okay? He ignorantly coached that game. Because you would figure, maybe after the second interception, maybe after the third interception. But no, let's just throw a fourth and a fifth. Wait a minute. Didn't this guy throw a bunch of interceptions last year? No, this is not Groundhog Day. I'm not doing that. No, Vinny, don't throw anymore. Hand it off to Alonzo. Alonzo was having the game of his life. It would have been the greatest game of his career if you would have just kept handing it off to him. He would have gotten the MVP. They would have won the championship, all of that. So trust me, Fiesta Bowl hurts me way more than the one at Ohio State. Definitely. Because you had that one in the bag. That was your championship, and you just gave it away. I have a problem with giving it away, not somebody taking it away from you. I hate it also, but it's worse that you had it and you gave it away. You can't control the referees. Can't do anything about that. This whole Jimmy Johnson stuff makes no sense. What can I tell you? It aggravates me that the way they built. Okay, I read that already. Big O, you're right about Jimmy failing with the Canes. I never looked at it the way you just did. It's just, the Maryland game. It's wow. Hell of a comeback on Frank Reich's part. That was the beginning of the nightmares of having to deal with Frank Reich as he moves on to the Bills. Lee Michael says, Mondo revealed that Westhoff was a finalist for the job in 96. Wish they would have hired him or even Glanville instead of Jimmy. I knew that he was a finalist for the job, that Westhoff, and then Wannstedt got it instead of Westhoff, actually, is what I think is how it went. So, yeah, they hated. I covered those teams. Westhoff couldn't stand Wannstedt. He thought Wannstedt was a phony. And if you know Westhoff, he's like brutally honest. He won't pussyfoot around anything. He's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. I love Mike Westhoff. He's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Andy Breakstone says, think intelligence is a big part of a successful O-line. Yes. Yeah. There's no doubt. A lot of O-linemen are really smart people. Cabrera says, Kyle Grant always looks good in camp, but with the exception of 2 games last year, I was not impressed with him. So you weren't impressed with him as a returner, or are you talking about as a wide receiver? I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about. Okay? Because Jakeem Grant, not Kyle Grant, is one of the best returners in the NFL. And so if you're not impressed with him as a returner, then you're basically not impressed with anybody in the NFL. You guys keep confusing receiver and returner. This is another one of those guys that has no idea that teams can actually keep people simply for special teams. But I guess we have to go through that whole explanation again. Big O, Kevin Jenkins to have season-ending back surgery. Shame. Vinny was a bust. Yeah, he was a bust. Yeah. Big O, you are right about Jimmy failing with the Canes. Thank you. Ohio State for sure because it was passing interference. It was holding. Big difference, holding call. Miami wins. Pass interference, Miami lost. Yeah, again, but you have no control over that. You understand my point? Jimmy had all the control in the Fiesta Bowl. There was no referee that was going to take away the game. All he had to do was make a smart coaching decision, and he made a stupid coaching decision by allowing Vinny to continue to throw the ball. And anybody that counts on Vinny Testaverde in a key moment like that, you've got to be a moron. So I disagree with you wholeheartedly. When you can control it and you fail, it's way worse than losing something you can't control. Because nobody can control the referee. But Jimmy easily could have controlled the entire situation, and he failed. Failed miserably. That's the problem I have with it. So that's why I don't want to hear any of that. I thought interesting, the NBA released their Christmas schedule. Noon, Atlanta and the Knicks. 2:30, Boston and the Bucks. 5 o'clock, Phoenix and Golden State. 8 o'clock, the Nets and the Lakers. 10:30, Mavs and Jazz. 5 games on that Saturday. The NFL, of course, had already announced their games several weeks ago. 4:30, Browns at Green Bay on Fox, NFL, and on Amazon. Okay? And the NFL's all over the place. 8:15, it's Colts at Cards on the NFL Network. The first game is really good. The second game, it all depends if they have a healthy quarterback with the Colts. Then it can be an interesting game. But the problem is Carson Wentz, he's injured right now. And he's going to be out several weeks? So I don't know if he'll be ready for the beginning of the season, but whether he is or not, do you think he makes it healthy to Christmas? I don't know if that game will be good or not because we don't know if Wentz can actually make it there. But I'm thinking about it. So at 4:30, am I better off watching Browns at Green Bay, or do I watch the end of Boston and the Bucks and then Phoenix and Golden State? Here's my problem with all of this. And I love basketball. I do. But I'm the first guy to tell you, the regular season in basketball, it's a joke. December basketball doesn't mean anything, dude. At least maybe in, the end of March and early April or something, at least you're coming down the stretch and now you but December basketball, you're still in the, what's that called? The doldrums of the season or something, like January and early February, you're still there. It's like mid-February when you start to get out of that funk of and I watch basketball. I play fantasy basketball. I love basketball, but every football game counts. And by Christmas time, these games are enormous. There could be playoff positions on the line for these teams. So am I going to watch an incredibly meaningful football game, or am I going to watch a meaningless basketball game? What the hell does Bucks and Boston mean at 2:30 on Christmas Day at 2:30 in the afternoon? Nothing. And I think I've seen enough of Boston and that group to know they're nothing either. Then at 5 o'clock, Phoenix and Golden State. Okay, it's great. By Christmas time, I'd already seen Clay and Steph play again. Fantastic. Did Wiseman improve? Whatever. I kind of know already, right? Phoenix, great story last year, all of that. But do I really care about this game in late December? Or should I rather watch the Browns and the Packers? No brainer. Then 8:15, Colts and Cards. That's the one that I will say, if Wentz is injured, why would I watch that game? Now, if Wentz is healthy, okay, now that's got me going, okay, Nets-Lakers is interesting. But then again, here's the other thing. Are you guaranteed that Kyrie Irving's going to be healthy? Are you guaranteed that Anthony Davis is going to be healthy? And it's a late December game in the NBA, which if Wentz is healthy, you have to watch the football games. They mean something. Basketball games at this point, unless it's really the Heat, just so because it's my team. But oh my God, you think I'm going to be? I'll watch some of the earlier games is what I'll do, and then maybe the 10:30 game, Mavs and Jazz, if I can still stay up and I'm not completely tired and worn out by then. But I saw that and it's like the NFL's every game matters. In September, they matter. I mean, every loss is devastating in the NFL. It changes everything that you're doing pretty much. In the NBA, what's a loss in December mean? Absolutely nothing. You have so many months to make it up and so many games to make it up. It's not a big deal. So that's one thing that I saw when they announced their schedule. And I was going, man, you're going up against football that actually matters. That's going to be a tough one. Braves and Marlins. Braves beat the Marlins yesterday 2-0, so they've lost 2 in a row now. Alcantara was terrific yesterday. 8 innings, 1 earned run, 7 Ks. Tonight it'll be Charlie Morton against Jesus Luzardo. And first pitch will be 7:10. And then Inter Miami taking on Chicago tonight at 7:30 at Drive Pink Stadium. We'll watch that. And we will, I'm sure, have somebody tomorrow to talk a little football. We got some other stuff lined up. Lisa Johnson is going to join us tomorrow. Friend of the program. Plus, Lisa does an excellent job of covering the Dolphins on an everyday basis for OurTurfFootball.com. Smart women, smart football. So we will talk to a very smart woman that follows football in Lisa Johnson tomorrow on the show. We got all kinds of guests coming your way tomorrow. And then, of course, we work our way to Friday when we've got Omar Kelly, Ira Winderman, and Manny Navarro joining us for the fantastic Friday we have here on the show. Oh, did you see the Indy Road racetrack get torn up? Personally, don't like all these road courses. Really miss the old NASCAR. Just go out and race. I did not watch much of it. I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I didn't watch too much of it, to be honest with you. So it just, and road courses, I'm all right for Indy cars for road courses. NASCAR, keep it on the ovals. NASCAR is one that I like on the ovals. I don't mind actually the road courses for Formula One and obviously for Indy, but for NASCAR, I'm with you. I'd rather it be oval if you're doing NASCAR at least. Indy, I don't mind. All right, we are out of here. We are going to wrap it up here on the show. We thank all of you out there as always for supporting the program. And remember, please, to hit the like button. It is very important to hit that like button out there, and plenty have done it. Please continue to smash it while you're watching it on YouTube, or if you're checking it out on the podcast, also smash the like button there on the podcast. Really appreciate that. We will see you all tomorrow, same time, same place, same bat channel. You all be good out there. Much love.
There's many ways to support our program, from subscribing and liking the show to visiting our terrific sponsors. Another way is using Cash App. If you would like to donate to the show and help us grow, download Cash App and search Cash Big O Show. That's Cash Big O Show. We appreciate your support as we continue to build the best sports show on the planet for South Florida sports fans. Support the Big O Show by using Cash App and donate to Cash Big O Show. Thank you for your incredibly loyal support.